Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 136 of Floating Through Film. This week, we are starting our series on the great Roberto Rossellini with his two most popular.
Well, no, Rome City's
most watched.
Probably
Oh yeah, except for Rome City.
Yeah, we're kind of just like.
Damn, that's actually really disappointing. That's crazy.
Yeah,
yeah. I just looked up average rating on Letterboxd highest. Rome Open City's highest.
No, there's definitely a lot of people that would like get mad at you about the.
That was giving this.
Yeah, we're kind of just like.
First of all,
you saying before this like, oh, these are like the homeroom movies.
I mean, we're already starting off on a disorganized note. Okay, so first, let me introduce my co-host here, Blake.
What's up?
And Luke.
Hello.
And then the movies we're actually doing, because I got it wrong at the end of last week's episode.
Damn.
I said it because I said Paisan and Rome Open City, but I meant Germany Year Zero. I don't know why I get the titles confused. I think it's like the 3-word titles.
I don't really get.
Have like a country or a city name in it. That have a name in it. I don't know.
But one's in Italian, the other's in German.
No, I don't know why I get the titles confused. But anyway,
I guess they are because it is one word, comma, and then 2 words. Germany, Year Zero, Rome.
I think that's why the way you say it.
I guess I can see that.
Yeah, that must be it. But either way, we're doing the second 2 of his Neorealist trilogy.
People call them the War
trilogy. The Neorealist trilogy I've seen.
Yeah, like a lot of people. I feel like when you first hear of Rossellini, you hear about these 3 movies.
And the fact that this is the one we're not doing is the highest rated.
Yeah, highest rated is kind of crazy. I'm not gonna lie.
Average rating.
It's I like it. I like.
So did you guys both rewatch it?
Yeah,
This is the first time I've watched it.
I liked it less.
Oh yeah,
I liked it less.
Like I'd already known I didn't want to do this movie. That didn't do. Like I've never liked Rome Open City.
You never liked it?
No, I've liked it, but it's not why I like Rossellini.
You never really liked it. Though,
yeah. Like honestly, I'm gonna be honest. None of these 3 movies, if these were his best movies, there's no way I would have ever picked them as.
I was watching these 3 movies and I was like, "This is the man that did Acts of the Apostles."
Okay. Wait, no, I'm not gonna.
The only thing I've seen from him.
I'm not gonna. Okay,
but
Rome City, I can see that made, but not Paisan and Germany.
They're still,
especially Paisan.
I was surprised that
Paisan,
Dany likes. I like those 2 a lot more than Rome Open City as well, but they are still very much so a melodramatic type of.
Yeah,
they are very very.
He starts to strip away some of these even more stylistic elements in these early ones.
You can be melodramatic and depressing.
I don't think that melodramatic.
You can be melodramatic and depressing. They're both. They are, but
I think Blake is right, especially with all 3 of these.
But dude, there are so many Hollywood swelling scores happening during these moments. And I'm just I'm surprised Dave wanted to do these movies.
I don't know say they were
okay, because you guys are kind of. There's actually a tension in just Rossellini in general, and the first question I'm going to ask you, because on all my series I've been doing, I kind of start this here every episode with a certain subject or something basically I want to talk about the director before we actually get into the movies.
Yeah. And
so honestly, the first 2 weeks, we're just going to talk about honestly the idea of what neorealism is, because I've mentioned it before throughout the series we've done before, because it's such a big kind of term in film to me, honestly, just the idea of what it means. I don't know, I just like talking about it first of all, but this first week we're kind of just going to talk about the background behind of it, what are people's conceptions of it, and then and then next week will be a part 2 of neorealism too. It'll be more Rossellini's own idea of neorealism.
Yeah.
But so I'm kind of going to start off by asking you, each of you, what do you guys think neorealism is? What comes to your mind when I ask you what neorealism is? If you have any ideas of it, even just say the most stereotypical thing that comes to your mind.
Stereotypical, okay, because
even if you're this is what
I used to be.
About it. Anything that comes to your mind, say.
Depressing reality.
Okay. Yes.
Well, so it's kind of neorealism's been weird for me because I used to feel I was so sure of it. I feel a lot of people do when they first hear it.
What's that sure thing
easy.
I'm asking? In a way?
It just means it's more realistic situations and non-professional actors on location shooting.
Yes, exactly.
And then you kind of think about it more, and you kind of start you view the essential ones, and then you kind of revisit them. You're wait, they're still very much non-realistic things. There's still very much movie type things in these movies.
Like what Blake said.
Yeah, and it's kind of like
melodrama.
But it's there's a tension there, which I guess maybe you're going to talk about. So it's kind of something I've kind of become like a bit disillusioned about, I guess, in a way, as of recently, especially as I kind of like watched a lot of like Italian films from like the 50s and 60s, and kind of how these directors kind of they like who started making neorealist films and then kind of moved away from it, like why that was. So yeah, I guess that's kind of like my experience with neorealism in a way.
So you say they moved away from it. What did they move away from?
I would say...
Is it what Blake said? These depressing stories? Because I was going to start
definitely
this
the subject
episode.
matter. Also, I would say so. I mean, it's not like a common. They're all different filmmakers, of course. So I'm thinking of like Visconti.
That's
Fellini,
actually a really good first one.
Like Visconti went to like more high budget, very colorful, almost like much more high scale films. That weren't specifically interested in these like working class. Visconti kind of became more interested in like the more like aristocracy, and then Fellini, of course, kind of like who we can even debate if he even was a neorealist in the first place, which I think we have before. Obviously, went a lot more personal. I feel like as he went along. So it's kind of. I mean, it just depends on the filmmaker, but they're obviously rejecting it in one way or the other. Each filmmaker, I feel like, and then I don't know, Rossellini. I go back and forth of whether he even like left it, which I'm sure you'll talk about. Like, but obviously it's not like definitely like his films later on are very much different from these movies, it's for sure. But we'll obviously get to it during the series.
What about you, Blake? What comes to mind?
I mean, not much, honestly, because...
Have you seen... How many...
I haven't seen very many.
That's
like, I am definitely not an expert on neorealism or Italian films of any kind, because I don't
So
really
honestly,
watch
but
that
that
many,
means your answer could be better, because I'm like...
Well, that's why I said depressing realities.
Yeah, but like, what is the stereotypical
I've watched
answer?
too much, but I'm like, I don't even know at this point.
Because even if you haven't seen them, like, even if you just watch enough films and film history and you read about it,
I mean,
whenever hear this term come up
the ones I'm thinking of are the ones like Bicycle Thieves and then these ones and stuff like that. They're definitely realities that they're trying to show you. Were like realities for the people at the time, especially these Italians living through Nazi occupation, followed by American occupation, and then followed by obviously what happened after that, where the Americans eventually left.
But honestly, that period right there, that transition period, is what. Especially Paisan's about. That's actually all Paisan's about in a way. The transition from Nazi to occupation to more Americans as liberators, in quotes.
Yes, in quotes.
Big quotes. But it's like different. The reason is there anything? Sorry, I interrupted you because you kind of mentioned exactly that's what Paisan's about. You can say Germany's about Nazi.
Germany Year Zero is about the same thing, but with Germany, which is really interesting.
Yeah.
An Italian filmmaker doing that.
Yeah.
Because I don't know, the Italian and German relationship is very interesting. I wish I knew, like I used to know more. I forgot a lot about like the World War II relations. Like obviously they were on the same side, Italy and Germany, but towards the end of the war, you could definitely like the Italian people didn't like Mussolini either. So they definitely didn't like the Nazis either. And like so if I knew more about the time period itself, I feel like I would love these movies a lot more also, because I also don't know the landmarks that are just destroyed beyond recognition in these movies, because I feel like that's a huge part of these also, is just showing like all these landmarks that people in Germany and in Rome would just like know offhand, just like, oh, this is our city. It's our city that's just completely destroyed.
There's it's honestly like my least favorite episode in Paisan, but it's like definitely, and when we go over Paisan specifically, I'll read some like a quote Rossellini says about that. It's like, this movie is specifically for Italians. And the way the movie was first conceived, it was almost like conceived like it was supposed to be for American and Italian audiences. And then like when Rossellini, by the time he finished it, was like basically like we see how the Americans are treated in all the films. Like it was supposed to be more even. Like when he first got the script stuff, but I'll mention that. Like, but that goes to your point of like it might be another reason why I consider the like I said, if these were the only movies he had directed, I wouldn't have picked him. It's these later movies that where I really like basically I love him as a director. But as I'm going to kind of talk about in terms of like really I'm going to talk about like what are the at least the main influence on this series book-wise I read is going to be Tad Gallagher's book, The Adventures of Roberto Rossellini, like his fucking 900-page book that I finally finished like right before the series.
Last minute.
But it's honestly crazy because it's there's just so much, and so like and it sounds like it's, but I'm not gonna, because he quotes so many different people throughout and stuff. So I'm gonna have different quotes and stuff throughout, and hopefully I'll read some other stuff before the end of the series. But we'll see. I've been spending all my time reading this one. But he kind of mentions a lot of the influences on neorealism, and he kind of really like, as with most terms in film, like the more you kind of analyze them, they kind of just break down, and that's kind of what you were going with. You kind of, your whole point is like, as you have you thought of it more, it's like you become disillusioned with the term.
Yeah.
And my whole point, like I was trying to find like a way to talk about it, and eventually I just came with like, I'm just gonna have these notes of like, and I'm gonna go through them, especially this first week of background of like the influences on neorealism, what it kind of, and I have some quotes from each of the directors on like how they like their short phrases on it and stuff. But then next week I'm really gonna go into like basically, because the way, especially what Blake described of the depressing stories, he described like on location shooting, more like here, I was gonna read the Wikipedia of how it describes Italian realism. Yeah. It mentions like working class mostly. Yeah. You know, like you think of Bicycle Thieves. Like there's a reason we did it. Like that was our first episode, second episode.
It was very early.
It was one of the.
It was our second episode.
Second episode.
Which I think we even talked about neorealism in that episode, which might be funny going back to.
See, non-professional actors.
Yeah. Because I think we were talking about like the Italian neorealism's like influence on the French New Wave then.
Yeah. Wikipedia says quote, they primarily address the difficult economic and moral conditions of post-World War II Italy, representing changes in Italian psyche and conditions of everyday life, including poverty, oppression, injustice, and desperation. And it's like, that kind of makes sense when you think of at least these two movies. It kind of makes sense, even then, like Paisan's kind of, it's about something else really.
Yeah.
But the reason why I'm saving Rossellini's his own personal neorealism for next week is because we're doing Europa 51 and Journey to Italy.
Yeah.
Those movies really don't fit a lot of these criteria at all.
No, I think a lot
like,
of people...
They're actually about the bourgeois. They're about the bourgeois
people, I'm pretty sure like a lot of the public didn't really accept them at the time, didn't they? Because like,
yeah,
because they were like, he was rejecting it, which happened to a lot of the Italian
They don't fit these terms that I just read.
Yeah.
So are those neorealist movies? Because in the movies listed for main works on the Wikipedia page, it also mentions both of those movies.
Damn.
But it doesn't fit that description at all, those two movies. So that's kind of what I'm trying to go over this week of, so what is neorealism? What is this? And he kind of cites a few directors that are influential before. The first, I don't know, have any of you seen King Vidor?
I've seen a couple.
I've seen one movie.
Which one?
The Crowd.
Oh, you've seen The Crowd?
Yeah.
What'd you give it? When did you watch The Crowd? Oh, yeah,
we talked about this.
We did?
Yeah, you knew I watched The Crowd. I knew you watched The Crowd because you guys talked about it.
I gave like a 4 or 4.5.
Okay, no, actually it's a really great movie.
It's a good movie.
No, it's a great movie, but let me read, because Tad Gallagher says, quote, King Vidor is the primary model cinematically for the neorealism shared by filmmakers otherwise as diverse as Rossellini, De Sica, and Visconti. And then he quotes a review from The Crowd that he says could have basically been reprinted in 1948 for the neorealists. And this was written negatively by this critic Gilbert Seldes in 1928. He says, negatively, the picture is extremely important because it breaks completely with the stereotype of the feature film. There's virtually no plot. There's no exploitation of sex and the love interest. There's no physical climax, no fight, no scheduled thrill. The characters, all commonplace people, act singularly unlike moving picture characters and singularly like human beings. There's no villain, no villainy, no success.
Yeah.
And that was in 1928 about The Crowd.
That's
like,
crazy.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, damn, it is like it's like describing this kind of idea. And I'm gonna, at the end of this intro, I'm gonna, because I have to quote Deleuze, you know. So
I knew you were gonna do it.
Yeah, so I'm gonna describe how he describes like neorealism too. But then there's another. He quotes John Ford, talking about how basically Ford in 1936 was already like basically thinking about this kind of neorealist ideal in a way.
Yeah.
And this is a quote from 1936. He says, "Quote: Eventually, we'll go out to a main fishing port or to an Iowa hill and employ ordinary American citizens we find living and working there, and we'll plan a little story and we'll photograph the scene and the people. That's all pictures should do anyway, and it'll be enough.
Yeah.
First of all, amazing quote.
You posted this on Twitter, right?
I did.
Okay, that's what I said. I've seen this before.
No, I did, but it's like first like those two. I mentioned those two, but it's just the idea of like this kind of idea of like being realistic in a way is like what films try to do. Like, you know, like that's what every director is trying to do.
It's probably why Paisan loved Rossellini too.
Yes. Yes. No, and honestly, I'm glad you mentioned Paisan because the next thing I'm going to bring up is, and the reason why I say this is why every director tries to do that. So then, if I say that, so why is there a certain term called neorealistic? Why did this called different?
Yeah.
And the real reason is it's this kind of stylistic elements that we brought up of like, you mentioned non-actors, you know, kind of making it feel like you're shooting on location. Even a lot of these like aren't on location.
Yeah, Paisan like apparently is not shot on location like at all.
No, a lot of it wasn't. Even though a lot of it they were actually just traveling around.
Okay.
I'm going to mention because like Fellini wrote the script and he was like just traveling around. They were just traveling around like going from episode to episode.
Yeah.
But this idea of like searching for realism, every director tries to do in a way. Like, so this is why Tag Gallagher kind of makes throughout the book, but he kind of makes a big emphasis on this. Honestly, this kind of myth that exists of neorealism is that I've been described as like almost overemphasizing. Oh, neorealistic movies are so real, you know, and how they portray reality, and that's mainly because of the subject matter of these war movies. Yeah. It's more subject matter, but really, like what made them, in my opinion, make them realistic is the more way they're filmed, the stylistic elements. But once you mention style, that's like you're saying that the director has a very big input on that, you know.
Yeah.
Like, and so that's almost the opposite of how neorealism films are talked about, where it's like almost like documentary-like and stuff. Because like he quotes Renoir as like one of like the biggest influences on like the both French filmmakers later that love the neorealists, especially Rossellini, but also Rossellini himself. Let me find this wrong part. He says, quote, Renoir says, documentary is the falsest sort of cinema. Which is kind of what I'm saying. Is like once you have the director, you're kind of like taking this idea of true realism out of it, right? Because the director's kind of having his say. Like
it's his worldview.
It's his worldview.
You can't truly be objective with the camera.
Yes. So that goes exactly. This is kind of a long quote, but I'm going to read it. About basically, Tal Gallagher says the myth of unmediated reality, and he blames Paisan in a way for kind of starting this idea of like the photographic camera giving us a, like you said, unmediated reality instead of something mediated by an artist. And so, quote, photography captures no matter who presses the button, and how can one thing be less real than another? Paisan's lust to get beyond conventions and to see things unfiltered in themselves led him to claim that film as a mechanical medium gave an unmediated print of the real. But Paisan was being theatrical. He never dreamed generations of American academics would take him seriously. He knew humans mediate the imprint by fashioning the mechanism, and again by gazing at the imprint. And who watches movies just for an imprint? Hadn't the Italians seen the war? What use could they have for Paisan, unless to experience someone else seeing the world? We want to experience mediation, not the lack of it. It's strange to find people speaking of a newsreel look as though newsreels were unneutral, unemotional documents. Is there anything more melodramatic than famous war photos? Why did critics deny the art to assert the real? Clearly, we assert art in order to value the real. There's more reality outside my window than on any movie screen. It is not unmediated recording that makes the Po Delta impressive. It is artistic cunning, like Murnau's taboo. I love that, especially the idea of like the whole reason we would watch a film in the first place, you know, instead of just like he says, look out your window, is we want to experience mediation. We want to experience the artist in between like recording the camera and then us seeing it. You know, there's always cuts, there's always edits. But like the way, and he talks about this style, the way neorealism is talked about a lot of times is like the value of it is like the opposite. You know, that's why people like the war movies so much. Yeah. They're like newsreel in a way, even though it's like none of them are really. Like,
no, it's when you get into war, it never is truly factual.
I think that's why people like war movies a lot, though, because they at least feel, you know, they want to feel. We want them to feel.
They give us an image of reality that we want to be real. No, it's not really real.
It's because of subject matter.
Yes.
But even those war movies, like he says, like the filmmakers are diverse as De Sica, Visconti, and Rossellini. You know, like Bicycle Thieves is so like it's not a million years Rossellini could ever make something like Bicycle Thieves, you know. And I'm going to talk about it in a second, but like.
But also, but it also kind of makes. I think it's kind of what makes Paisan really interesting because he's almost like merging the, almost like kind of newsreel commentary, like more like from a distance objective view of the war. Where in between these episodes, it's like, oh, here's what's happening in the war, like in a very like news, where and then he's mixing it with these like very personal, almost you could say almost insignificant stories.
Yeah.
So he's kind of merging the two in a way that's very interesting, in my opinion, in Paisan.
No, that's interesting. I actually don't know if either of you guys have, because he basically says Rossellini's, and I've already mentioned like Ford and Vidor as like two people before Rossellini, but he kind of mentions. He says there's a realist expressionist school in cinema, and that kind of goes exactly what you're saying, where he's trying to merge these two things: realism and expressionist.
Like the French. What's the 30s French thing? With like Renoir, Vigo.
I forgot. I don't know what it's called.
French something. French.
Realism?
No, poetic realism. Poetic realism.
Okay. Yes. Honestly, that would kind of make sense because like. I also tweeted this chart a while ago. So this realist expressionist school, that kind of goes to say like trying to merge these two of realism and expressionist. Like what can the camera do? You know what? How does the artist like reveal himself? And he divides that school into two categories: social realism and aesthetic realism.
Yeah.
And basically that kind of makes a lot of sense to me because I don't know. So social realism. That's basically, in a way, not Ross. That's more De Sica. He says De Sica's one of those, Hitchcock's another, Eisenstein's another, and then Lang is another. Yeah. First of all, that makes sense just with the content in a lot of their films, you know?
Yeah.
Or at least the ones I'm thinking of. I don't want to overgeneralize. But especially like Eisenstein, you know? Like if you think about like kind of like what Eisenstein's movies are about versus Rossellini.
Lang makes a lot of sense too, at least from the little I've seen from him. Like Metropolis and M, kind of like almost like being commentaries on society.
Yes.
Make a lot of sense to me.
And then he says poetic realism, and the four he names are Murnau, which I don't know if you've seen.
That's obvious.
Yes. Yeah. Ford. Yes. Yeah. Sternberg, who I haven't seen.
I've seen one, but that kind of makes sense from what I've also read about him.
But Rossellini too. Okay. And then also, this is a quote that, and apparently he also loved Griffith and Stroheim. Yeah. Which also makes sense. Stroheim, kind of, honestly, I can see both.
Griffith, I can see.
But then he says, quote, because apparently Murnau is his favorite, where he says, quote, Murnau's influence is far back, but that was the invisible spring that started things going. Okay. But that kind of poetic realism, because that's like, that's what makes Rossellini kind of different to me, and that's to me, like, this kind of poetic realism is what he keeps throughout all of his movies. You know, that's what, like, when Blake asked, how is the director that make Paisan also make X the Apostle? It's also that kind of, it's those like, it's that idea, that poetic realism. And Paisan has certain moments of it. And I'll try to mention a few as we go throughout the movie. But yeah, it's like that idea of like, as you're filming it, like a realist, you're filming it in a certain, like objective way, I guess. There's still like these moments of like,
they're like they're poetic because they're insignificant. If you're looking at it from that objective point of view, but to the people in the stories, they are very significant. Like,
but even to the viewer, hopefully, as well.
Yeah, well, yes.
Who's like translating it or kind of seeing it, you know?
Yes, the translation of it.
Yes. And he kind of, he basically says, De Sica and Rossellini kind of going off these two branches of aesthetic realism and poetic realism, social realism, using De Sica and Rossellini as examples. He says, these are poets in different directions. They belong to different aesthetic families, as Bazin says. Rossellini amplifies the range of his character sensations, whose heightened presence excite the filmic world they inhabit. Streets, landscapes, rooms, and objects, though straightforwardly photographed, shimmer on the screen not merely as reality, but as romance. This is what is meant by expressionism or melodrama. The filmic story world is active, projecting mood rather than receiving it. We feel the filmmaker's personality as strongly as we feel the object he photographs. I think that's like, Blake said this at the very beginning, like, he felt that like they were really melodramatic. Like the music is one example of that. But honestly, just the way like just how much the shadows you notice in Germany Year Zero, you know, and like how tight the rooms are. Like every time he's like talking to these people, it's like it's very expressionistic. You know, it's not just like objective the way it's filmed. Even though like I I don't know. Maybe it's not you don't identify with the characters as much, which is why like certain people kind of maybe feel new.
It kind of has a objective feel to it, like an objective camera.
Yes.
Or like a detached camera a little bit, not objective, but detached.
And the reason I think the reason I say this is because like we're following this boy, but we're obviously not identifying with him necessarily.
It's more like showing you the plight.
Yes.
Of just
like how this society creates a child.
Because it's not. I don't think it's like trying to make you feel bad for him at all. I mean, you're feeling bad for him because any child having to live through this, you feel bad for. Basically.
Well, I feel like the point
but you also don't like feel great for him either.
I feel like the point is that no one identifies with him either.
It's fair.
Because of his circumstances.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, he kind of is fucked.
Yeah.
From the beginning.
No. Yeah, that's kind of what this movie's about. Is like everywhere he goes, he's fucked.
Yeah.
No. But yeah, we'll get to that, I guess, for Germany Zero. But just a few more things. I said I was going to... Actually, another person that reminded us, because we just talked about this, was Turner. Right, where he uses environments to really project like the expressions of how he's feeling. You know, as the director, that's how the way the director kind of shows himself. Is through the quote filmic story world is active, and that feels like everything in Turner is like active. You know, and in Rossellini too. Like there's, we'll obviously talk about certain moments. But I said I was going to mention Deleuze and the whole like I mentioned throughout the series, like. Deleuze's concept of the time image, his like shift in cinema, and he says there's basically 5 characteristics that are apparent in the new image or the time image, and he says those are the dispersive or different situations, the deliberately weak links, the voyage form, the consciousness of cliches, and the condemnation of plot. And then he says it was the Italian neorealism which forged the 5 preceding characteristics.
Yes.
And if we talk about this movie, obviously just an example of that is like I think that's what's true. It's like I said, it's more of these like kind of stylistic elements that make up neorealism more than just even the subject matter.
Yeah,
it's this way of telling a story, you know, that you don't have to. Like Paisan, like the episodes are just kind of random, you know.
No, and they kind of like
you have to connect them if you even find a connection.
Yes.
They do have some themes that's what we're going to talk about.
Yeah, there isn't like he kind of just like leaves them be without like much. He kind of just lets him be.
Yes.
He doesn't try and like link them, and also like
yes.
I don't know. It's the way he like comes into them and leaves them too, or feel a bit like kind of almost like he isn't trying to like tie a bow on him at all. Like, but yeah.
Yes.
It feels like the American soldiers coming into their lives for a little bit and then leaving.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let me read some quotes, and then we'll start with Paisan of these different kind of people I've mentioned, and some people I just want to quote about like how they define neorealism. First is Zavattini. He's the like kind of famous screenwriter of neorealism.
Okay, yeah. Was the guy Benoit was dissing?
Yes,
okay.
Dissing. I mean, he kind of says like neorealism as a concept, and then he has a certain basically what serialism was. But this is what Zavattini says in 1952. The old realism wasn't expressing the real. What I want to know is the essence, the really real, inner as well as external reality. There's a thin line between reality and the imagination, and it's that thin line we followed at first. Our movement, which we call neorealism, is simply an attempt to stay always at the level of the Italian people. And then De Sica says, neorealism is a poetry of life itself. And another quote is, neorealism is not reality. It is reality filtered through poetry, reality transfigured. Most films today are made in a realistic style, but they're actually opposed to neorealism. I kind of like that quote too, because it's like you can use these same stylistic elements, you know, and then not be real. You know, it can still feel fake. And then Renoir, because this kind of goes to the same. It's on a very similar quote to De Sica said. Renoir says, "Reality has value only when it's transposed. In other words, an artist exists only if he manages to create his own little world. It's not in Paris, Vienna, Monte Carlo, or Atlanta that's Stroheim's, Chaplin's, and Griffith's characters evolved. It's in the world of Stroheim, Chaplin, and Griffith." Okay. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I think I see what you're saying.
I like that. Like, it's not in Paris, Vienna, Monte Carlo, or Atlanta that Stroheim, Chaplin's, and Griffith characters evolved. It's in the world of Stroheim, Chaplin, and Griffith itself that their characters also evolve. You know. That's honestly, it makes me think a lot because a newsreel would be like, yeah, you're filming the person, but you didn't create the whole world they're in, right?
Yeah.
But he's saying like, really, like every time a chaplain or someone films a character, they also create that whole world that character exists into.
Yes.
And that's a hard thing to do. That's like what mise-en-scène is in film. You know, trying to get that feeling of atmosphere of a whole world.
Yes. Yes.
And to me, that's what Rossellini is going to be amazing at in these next movies, especially the historical ones.
Definitely, yeah.
You know, making you feel like this is a place that people walk around in. You know, just the way his camera moves throughout the scenes. Even though the sets, like someone that's watching for the first time, they'll say, "Oh, the sets look fake." You know, like the people talk weird and stuff.
Yeah.
But it's like more than that. It's that idea of like feeling like you're in a whole place where things are actually going on all over the place.
I feel like it's like bringing life.
When people talk, it's not like just like the first conversation they've ever had.
Yeah.
Like
it's like bringing life to people who like died, basically.
Yes.
Like it's like almost like filming statues in a way.
Yes, and it's a way of bringing life. It's like, but that's why I'm trying to say this. It's like it's bringing life in a way film brings life to things.
Yes.
You know, it is very stylistic.
Yeah.
It's not in a way bringing life as if you were like a documentary.
Yes. Yes.
As I said that quote earlier, documentary is the falsest sort of cinema, which is kind of funny. And I have to quote, before I quote Rossellini, I have to quote Fellini too, because he has some great quotes just about this idea of what neorealism is. First, he said, like, because you said that you kind of mentioned this idea of like Fellini was neorealistic, but was he really in this idea? Because he says, quote, Rossellini didn't know what he was doing. He was doing neorealism when he shot Rome Open City. Since then, people have tried to build a wall around neorealism and hoist a flag over it. And now they're criticizing Rossellini and me for jumping over that wall. You know, this idea of, like, what is it in the first place? Like, but then a few other ones are... Neorealism is a way of looking at reality without any prejudice, without intervening conventions. Not just social reality, but spiritual reality as well. Metaphysical reality. Everything that's within man. Yeah. And then my favorite one, I've quoted this a few times already, but it's still great. I have to say it again. Is in Armor Core I built the sea, and nothing is truer than that sea on the screen. It is the sea I wanted, which the real sea would never have given me. Which is like, just like that, the idea of inner reality. You know, like
because like real can be interpreted in many different ways.
Yes.
Which I think is a big part of Rossellini, like what is truth, basically. Like
yes.
Like is more important to be real. Your own reality or some type of objective reality? Like,
yes.
Does objective reality even exist? Like is that even attainable?
And honestly, to close out, let me read the Rossellini quotes, because it kind of goes exactly what you just said. Is first, neorealism is fiction that becomes more real than reality. That kind of matches exactly with the Armor Core quote I just wrote with Fellini. Yeah. You know, it's like making something fictional more real. You know, that's something art can do. But then, also, photogenius isn't in the opening of the camera, but in the choice and presentation of the document. This is neither reportage nor Zola-like naturalism. One must achieve a new form of artistic expression, whose poetry is drawn from reality. I kind of like that last line too, and you could say that's to me what neorealism is. It's poetry drawn from reality. You know, it's not because that's what film, or at least this idea of, you know, without being held to the conventions of a film is a 3-act structure with a story, you know, where the chains link. As I mentioned, like with the Deleuze thing, like he already mentioned these kind of 5 characteristics that kind of broke away from this tradition of telling a story. But it's this idea of being real in a different way, while almost like using stylistic elements, poetry, by breaking free of traditional characteristics.
Even the term neorealism, neo is like a prefix for new.
New, basically.
So it's new realism.
Yes.
Like if it was just, if what they're doing was just
that's a good point.
Was just filming like just being like a documentarian, or like as we were saying, like not even trying to bring anything to it, it would just be realism.
Yes,
but there's a reason why it's why we call it neorealism. I feel like.
Yes. But honestly, the kind of point of like, it's kind of like it's a shaky term, right? Like
it's very arbitrary.
Because I've said like it probably got the term because of a lot of the subject matter, especially from American critics watching these movies that they were literally filming right after the war. You know, they had nothing else to film, and so like this was their only option, and a lot of it was like it was shoddy just because like that was literally it wasn't stylistic choices.
They were really living in the rubble.
Yeah,
they were literally living
exactly.
in the rubble.
Like Rossellini really had no idea what he was doing, kind of thing. You know? but like as he says, like it's not just like he said, photogenius isn't just the opening of the camera; it's the presentation of the shots as well. You know, that's like montage. That's pure montage. But yeah, basically poetry drawn from reality, I guess is what I say. And then next, kind of to lead to next week, because I'm gonna talk about more specifically how Rossellini describes it, and I'll mention like this philosopher named Benedetto Croce that was really influential on him. But because you kind of already mentioned this, it's like, do we create our reality, or is reality objective? That was this philosopher's like biggest point, is of basically, and why Rossellini shifts. Basically, he always stays throughout history throughout his career. You know why he focused on history and not the future. Really, is Rossellini and this philosopher believe that to relive the past, you have to create a new reality today. Basically, and that's why he loved going back in time, but like almost going back in time in a way to show people now like hope for, you know, we can have hope to change the future. And that's basically we'll see in these early films, but especially in later ones, people trying to change their reality. You know, trying to change, have these moments of like, for Rossellini, he calls them moments of impulse, almost of like just these moments where they have these sudden changes that they can shift everything.
We're looking to talk about this next week.
Next week, sure. And that's why I'm saving this Rossellini's personal neorealism. You know, this individual, and that's why I guess Tag Gallagher calls it aesthetic realism. But to me, you could even in a way call it more personal too. It's like more like individual in a way. Like the individual can have this kind of shift in perspective. That's why we're saving it for next week. I don't know if Blake has seen these two.
I haven't seen any.
Okay.
The only Rossellini I've seen is Acts of the Apostles.
But you probably should have asked us that actually before. Oh yeah, wait, hold on, what?
Damn.
Okay, wait, you probably should have asked us like what Dark Spell.
Okay, wait. So we'll say it now.
Yeah,
we'll say it now.
I know Luke has seen a lot of them.
Well, no, for the longest time I'd only seen the War trilogy, these 3 movies. And I was like, these are cool. Like I wasn't like crazy about them. And then earlier this year, I was like, all right, I need to watch them. I need to buckle down. And so I started watching a bunch of his stuff, and I really like him. And I guess we'll get into it. But like right now, I'd probably say my 2 favorites are Journey to Italy and Blaise Pascal. Probably Journey to Italy is my favorite though.
No, go look at Luke's review on Letterboxd. He's got a good review of it.
You got it. You better next week when you do the movie, you better quote have one of my quotes be my review. Okay. But you gotta do it like right after like a Deleuze quote, you know.
Okay.
You know, our new famous film writer, you know, or the next up, you know.
Yes sir.
No, I'm not good. I'm average.
But Blake, what Blake just said, he's only watched Acts of the Apostles. Which Tag Out calls maybe his best movie.
Yeah, it's great. I do love it.
His best movie?
Maybe his best, yeah.
I haven't seen it, but that's like a crazy statement.
Is it a movie or a miniseries?
It's a movie. It's
a TV show.
It's a TV movie in 5 parts.
No.
In 5 parts.
No, there is some crazy.
It is great.
I can find some great quotes of like because Rossellini basically all these later movies, a lot of the later ones we're gonna do were TV movies. Yeah. They're made for TV. So here's some great quotes of saying like TV is the future, not cinema and stuff like that. But not the TV. That's not the TV of today though.
By the way, who is this Rossellini? Like, did he like? I don't know if you know. Like, are you gonna talk about like how he became a filmmaker or stuff?
Honestly, I guess I probably should more next week.
Okay, you do it next week. But...
Yeah, no, I think
he kind of spawned out. He spawned when the war ends. He just kind of appeared.
Well, he did start like I think he only started. He made his first movie like 39 or something.
Okay.
So he did start kind of late. I'll give more biography next week because this was one of the like I want to talk about more just neorealism as a concept in general. Yeah. Even though like I guess that would make sense more to biography, but to me neorealism is more important. Like you could look up his biography on Wikipedia if you want. But also just the idea of like neorealism is kind of it's a very shaky concept, you know.
Yeah.
But realism is also it's just like in any art, like especially if you start like learning about any 20th century art, like this idea of realism is such a huge deal. Yeah. Like what does it even mean, you know? But I guess we can we'll start on basically Paisan. Who wants to go first on what they thought of the movie?
I can go first.
All right.
No, I liked it. I liked some of the stories more than others. I think that's where it falls apart for me a little bit. Yes. It kind of always happens with vignette movies for me, unless all the vignettes are amazing, like something like Widen. But
and we will do a movie in the future. I mean, you've seen India, actually.
I haven't seen India.
You didn't?
No.
Oh, shit.
No, you watched India. You watched India.
With Sean?
No,
I remember you loved it.
Oh, wait, no, I have seen
remember
India.
you loved it.
I loved India. India's great.
Yes.
That
Wow,
movie's
obviously
great.
didn't
Yeah.
love it because he forgot about it. It's forgettable.
No, that movie's great.
It's forgettable, apparently.
Is India Mathrubhumi different?
Yeah. No, that's the same one.
Oh, okay.
That's Rossellini.
Yeah.
Damn,
I have seen
forgot.
that one. I forgot I've seen that.
It's also episodic, too, which is why I bring it up.
That one, I like that one more, just because it's more episodic in terms of you're just showing India, and so it's not really like episodes, it's just India, but...
But there's also distinct episodes, too.
I guess.
But I know what you mean. But either way, yeah, episodic, like you're saying, for the most part, it is true.
Yeah, because, like, I especially love the second, the one with the boy and the black soldier. That one's fucking the best. That one and the priest one are probably my two favorites. No, the last one's also really good, but it's like
yes,
I love three of them, and I was kind of mid on
honestly.
three of the other ones.
Actually, I think I probably agree. Even though I like the first one too.
I like
certain
all
moments
of them.
in the first one,
and I think all of them have this like impulse moment that you're talking about
yes.
for sure.
Yes, I'm glad
Like
you
almost
said that.
every single episode does. So.
I'm going to mention that, but yeah.
But no, I definitely did like it. I liked it more than Rome Open City too. For sure. I like both of these more than Rome Open City.
I'm sorry if you're a Rossellini fan if you were expecting that.
Damn. I actually probably like this movie more than both of you.
Okay.
Paisan, because I actually loved it this time.
Oh, okay.
Like, and it was just kind of surprising because this was my least favorite when I initially watched it. I don't know if like things was boring, but I also didn't really know anything about Rossellini or anything. Like, it was a while ago. But I kind of mentioned earlier, like my favorite thing about it is kind of like this contrast between these like very personal, almost like, as I said earlier, like insignificant. How they seem insignificant, like when put right beside this, like almost like very like kind of newsreel, almost like documentary footage of the war, but in a sense, it's contrasting between how how these characters almost it is very significant for them, even though like in the midst of war, just these like little like I guess like acts of humanity, I would say like.
No.
So yeah, I find it very affecting.
No, like humanity is a big word for us in
Yes,
guys' lives. So,
like
yeah, that's like very.
Like to me, I found that very affecting in this movie. Like, and I mean, I didn't really have a problem with any of the vignettes. To be honest, like.
I don't think I had a problem with any of them. I think there are just a few that stand out a lot more than others to me. So,
like the one with the two, like just going through the city. Like this. Actually, I honestly lost my point at the beginning where I was saying like, the Italian. There's an Italian sensibility of this movie that probably for people at the time watching it. Yeah. Like the episode with both of them just running through the city trying to get to the other side.
Oh yeah,
families
during
across.
the war.
Yeah, during
yeah.
the
And then when she like
Like that one is kind of just like it's not as good. For me, it's like not as great as some of the other ones. Some of my favorite parts are just like the footage of the town, like the city that they're going through and stuff, and all the wreckage and stuff. So I could see someone watching at the time like really feeling affected, like from Italy watching that, just seeing stuff that they really related to.
It's definitely a war movie that's like basically only seen through like experience and like human experience in a way.
Oh yes.
Instead of like something else, like compared to like a lot of different war movies.
Well, isn't that also kind of what makes it neorealism?
Yeah. No. Yes. You learned something.
Wait, wouldn't that make Paths of Glory neorealism too? Then?
I don't know.
That's a courtroom drama, but I guess not. It's not really showing real places or anything.
See, that's the thing. I don't know if like neorealism you have to show a real place.
I don't know.
But I don't know if most people wouldn't call it neorealism.
Oh no.
See, that's why to me like it's a very bad term. Like
that's what I'm saying.
Like
putting
anything
in a box. Putting anything in a box is usually bad.
It's more like that's why I think Deleuze's idea of like it was more like a break in how stories were told in a certain way. Like you can see a lot of these stylistic elements of neorealism for very fictional movies,
Well, I'd never expected to have the Yakuza Papers pop up in my head whenever I was watching these movies, because the Yakuza Papers basically is doing this same type of, not the same type of thing at all, but like starring off the movie with like shots of Hiroshima, like documentary shots of like Hiroshima after the bomb and everything that. And it's just like, making you think about like the time that's set in and like
Yes,
what the
little
people
stuff
are
like
under,
this.
basically the stress
Yes.
that people are under. But
No, you have. That's what I'm saying. Like it's more like.
it has veins through a lot of things.
Yeah.
which I
Oh my
was
god. That's why it's such a
not
big deal.
expecting,
Even
for
now,
sure.
like it's hard not to notice its influence. But still, at the same time, like I've only seen like, I don't know if I've. I think Desika's only movie I've seen is Bicycle Thieves. So outside
Umbrella
Rossellini,
D?
I haven't. Maybe I did watch it and I forgot.
I mean, I'm not like crazy about it.
I don't
but,
think.
like,
Maybe I did watch
it's like
something.
the guy and his dog. The loser wrote about it because he had to
I
think
haven't
about like
seen
the girl
Umbrella
like
D.
in the room. She's like trying to like. It's like the character almost trying to break its. He said like it's like the first evidence of the time image or something. Like when she's like trying to like, she's like drawing on the wall, in the movie.
No, I haven't seen it.
Yeah. That's pretty good.
But the reason I bring that up is that like, it's these stylistic elements, and then as I'm going to talk about next week, used by a certain director, where we see the own director's personality, the own director's kind of vision, using these elements is what makes kind of the realism special in a way in the first place. Why we even watch.
Yeah.
But okay, to get back to Paisan, he starts his book chapter on it with a Simone Weil quote, which is like amazing because I had so then obviously I have to read it, and it kind of fits this kind of
Who's
theme of the
Simone
movie.
Weil?
Oh, I've mentioned she's like a French philosopher from the like mid 1900s.
Okay.
I've mentioned her a few times, but okay, this quote he says this quote: "It is not the cause for which men took up arms that makes a victory more just or less. It is the order that is established when arms have been laid down." And that's kind of what this movie's about, is what's the order that's established when arms have been laid down after the battles have already taken place for the most part, you know. And obviously in this case it's the Allied forces, the United States as liberators. So first let me read, because this is actually kind of to justify my position of why I didn't pick Rome Up the City.
Yeah.
Let me read this quote from Rossellini, the man himself.
The man himself.
Come on, man.
Quote, "You have no idea. This is really a confession." Because he said this apparently 25 years later, so I don't know what the math is from Paisan, but quote, "You have no idea. This is really a confession. How much I hate Open City and how much I love Paisan more. Open City is full of old ingredients. Paisan is pure, less seductive. Just the facts are all there. My starting point was a moral position, to show facts honestly in order to understand fully. So I had a feeling that I was cheating a little bit in Open City, for example. So I tried to purify the thing in Paisan."
I can get what he's saying with that for sure.
And then Tad Gogler says, "Paisan would be the true debut of Rossellini, the movie maker."
Yeah, I can get behind that, bro.
Okay.
No, I don't hate Rome City though.
I don't hate it. It does feel more Hollywood though than I would say in these other two for sure.
Like, to me, just the most famous shot of the movie, obviously, of her running.
Yeah.
It's just so un-Rossellini. Like, there's nothing in any of his later movies that have anything like that,
Yeah.
really, that I can think of. Maybe the ending of, like, Stromboli or something, kind of. Or even your
I don't even remember the.
like, on the volcano.
I remember them being on the volcano. I don't remember the ending though.
I'm just saying a more melodramatic kind of moment.
Okay.
But that's also something that'll change even from the next two movies or next week to his even later movies.
Yeah.
But okay, to keep going with Paisan, first the title.
It's like a Italian word for like friend or something. Right?
Well, it's actually, that's what's funny, because the title even kind of goes with this theme of the movie as Americans as liberators in Italy.
Yeah.
Because let me just read what Tag Geller says. He says, "Fraternity is evoked by Rossellini's title, Paisa, adopted 2 months into the shooting. The word was not Italian, but a corruption of the Italian-American paisano, which means countryman or buddy, that Allied soldiers used in greeting Italians."
Okay.
So basically it's kind of like basically the way they would say paisa, instead of paisano, they would say paisan or paisa.
Okay.
So kind of like, obviously, just like a corruption of an Italian word by Americans. So kind of like, obviously, that even fits the theme of the movie itself. But that kind of leads me to the Americans as liberators in the movie, because to me that's like one of the themes of the movie. And I already mentioned how, like, apparently the original script, which was because Rome of City was a big hit, just internationally, like, Obsession is known as like the first like Italian neorealist movie.
Yeah.
But Rome of City really was like the one that I think it won like at Cannes a big award or something. So like it blew up internationally and stuff, and that's what made it a neorealism a term internationally. So like I think like with Paisan they were trying to make like a movie that could be a big hit with American
Starts with
audiences.
the MGM logo.
Yes,
does,
yes.
yeah.
So they're trying to make
Yeah.
another like a movie that could maybe be big internationally too, while having this kind of theme. But so the original kind of idea had Americans as more like positive forces in Italy, and then let me read what he says. Tag Gallagher says, "Quote: Americans were their liberators and frequently their friends, but Americans were also their conquerors, their occupying army, their dictators, and frequently their despisers. It was difficult not to resent them at times." Not surprising, then, that in the movie that emerged, Paisa, it is the Italians who are the protagonists, whereas the Americans have been reduced to witness who seldom understand what's going on. In each episode, the naivety of the American characters is unmasked, and they are taught pointed lessons in humility, usually at the cost of Italian lives. And then a letter on he to kind of talk about why this kind of shift is important. He says, "This shift is key to Rossellini's concept. It's why Paisa wears the aura of a national epic. Although the immediate impression of each episode is negative, the heroine dies, the heroes die, the horde goes unredeemed. Each incident implies a new Italy reborn from the ashes, a nation of fraternity, tolerance, and commitment, the dream of resistance. Paisa's message is emphatic for Italian viewers who identify with the Italian characters. It will be diluted for American viewers who identify with the American characters. An American-oriented experience of Paisa goes against its grain, and American viewers would do well to experience each episode from within the sensibility of Italians." Like, I think that's a good way, before we even talk about the episode, is like, it's hard not to notice, like, the Americans kind of just, like, really dumb throughout this.
Oh, yeah.
Just, depends on, some of them they're more, like, at least sympathetic versus the other ones. Like, they're dumb in different ways throughout, you could say. But then, to read, to keep going on, though, and this will kind of carry on to next week, because as you can say, this is the other big theme, and Blake kind of mentioned that like each episode has this kind of moment between like characters of like, maybe you could say even transcending their situation, you know, kind of having these moments of like of humanity, as Blake as Luke said, like acts of humanity, or like to me it's like almost like finding poetry in your moment, you know, being able to like have courage in your moment outside of even like what's around you.
Also, like transcending kind of like the barriers of like language, culture.
Yeah, language is a big one, even for the first episode.
Yeah, first episode especially.
Yes. And he says also, basically, you could say national shame as well, because like each episode we kind of see like a national shame of the former regime, or like just what the kind of the shame of what Italy is in right now. You know, like the horror in one episode, or like I guess the monks one is kind of interesting because you could say like it's they're kind of just trying to hide from everything that's going on in a certain reading. But basically each episode has this. And so let me read what he says. Quote: "As in each of Paisa's episodes, a character undergoes a war-inspired trauma so overwhelmingly convulsive that, as happened to Paul on the road to Damascus, his entire attitude toward life is totally reconstructed. These moments of grace are never pondered over, never considered, are always instinctual, always blinding revelations, always triggered by impulse, always motivated by love, always confront shame. Carmela, loving Joe, this is the first episode, Carmela, loving Joe, does not stop to consider whether she'll be killed. The chaplain, loving the monks, does not stop to consider intolerance caused the war. The world, as Croce says, is what we make of it. There is no right way of seeing. There's no question of conforming to reality. But there is the power of making the world to conform to us, of making it a grace. Moments of empathy, of genuine intuition, despite incomprehension, are Paisa's point, and the point of Rossellini's life in all of his movies." And to me, that's like that's kind of what you guys both said it in your own way, which is interesting.
No, it's definitely the part why I love this movie, honestly. It's definitely the heart of this movie.
Yes.
Does Scorsese have like a quote talking about this movie? Because he always talks about.
He probably does, but I didn't look really.
He's like, oh yeah, I watched this on like my TV when I was a kid. Like it was like dubbed in English or whatever. Like, I mean that was Lestrade. He said that. Maybe in this one as well.
Instead of Scorsese, I'm gonna quote someone better than him.
Oh shit.
Fellini.
Damn.
Someone most more important.
He said not me.
Most important to the movie too, because he's also a co-writer for this.
He was a co-writer for this.
Flowers.
Is there anything else he was a co-writer for?
I don't know. Apparently, this is also the movie. He also first directed some of his scenes. Like,
shit.
This is something I'll talk about maybe in a future episode. But Rossellini, especially as he got older, he was much more of the ideas behind the movies are much more important than the actual directing of the shots, you know, in some of these.
Damn.
But he also had this idea of, like, even early on, like...
Damn. Fellini ghost directed.
No, but basically... he only did, like, a certain shot. He only did a few shots or something. But Fellini said that was, like, his first time actually directing. And also, this was Julia Messina's first role in a movie, too.
Damn.
She plays, I forgot, some side character or something.
Wow. I don't remember.
Because this is also Rossellini.
It's one of the best
this is also one of
movies,
Rossellini's things that throughout his life he would always hire as much family as possible and like try to cut costs wherever he could.
Well, we talked about this in the Viva Seville episode. The quote where he's like, he was giving advice to Godard. And he's like, do you want to like make them look like peasants? Like, just like get some like bags or something, and then like take the rest for yourself or something.
Oh damn. No, but let me read what Fellini says about Rossellini, because it's he says apparently Fellini said Paisan was the turning point in his life, at least cinematically, because he says, quote, "Seeing Rossellini at work, I discovered for the first time that it was possible to make a film with the same intimate, direct, immediate rapport as a writer writes or as a painter paints. I understood there wasn't anything particularly difficult about filming, or so mysterious or technical about all that equipment as to require special initiation, except knowing how to say with simplicity what one had seen. I suddenly glimpsed a whole new world, that looked full of love with which he had enveloped things, and which inspired each one of his shots. The principal lesson I got from Rossellini was a lesson in humility. His humility in front of life, his extraordinary trust in things, in people, in people's faces, in reality. Looking at things with love, and with that communion that is established from one moment to another between a face and me, an object and me, I understood that the profession of a director could fill my life, could be rich enough, passionate enough, exalting enough, to help me find a sense in existence."
Damn. I wish someone would talk about me this way.
I know.
What the fuck?
First of all, Fellini's so good at... But I had to read that like just loving quote of Rossellini because they apparently had like a frenemy. More Ross. To me, it seems like more Rossellini was just jealous of Fellini. After later on, because Fellini became much more successful. Like, especially with these whole terms of this is what neorealism is. Fellini only really directed movies post kind of war movies, you know. And so like Fellini, like La Strada was really popular and stuff, and that's when Rossellini started to fall off basically in terms of popularity. But it was almost like Fellini always was like, I feel like Fellini was always the bigger man, basically.
Yeah, I mean, damn, look at that quote. That's like crazy.
No, it's true. But this guy named Amedy, who was like I think a screenwriter for this one too, all three of them, Sergei Amedy. If you can, let me look.
Wait, Sergei what? Wait,
it's
not the writer.
A-M-I-D.
The writer for all
yeah,
these?
or at least for Paisan. But he says, talking about Fellini and Rossellini, he says, quote, "They were great friends, two marvelous liars, two fantastic characters, though in slightly different keys." And then I had to mention this.
Okay, yeah, Sergio Amede.
Yes, this guy.
Amede.
Yeah.
I'm not pronouncing that.
That was
right
his.
For sure.
That was his quote about Fellini and Rossellini.
Amede, yeah, that's how it looks.
And then apparently, I think this is his source, but Tag Allerson says they also would play pranks on each other. And one time, Rossellini spiked his omelet with cocaine, apparently.
Oh my god.
What?
But Rossellini was a cokehead for a while.
Is that where Scorsese got it from?
He might have been, honestly.
Rossellini was like, "I got a plug for you."
He spiked his omelet with coke. That's hilarious.
And he says, but there was no effect but laughter for Fellini, though.
Just a prank, bro. I just put coke in your drink. God damn, that's crazy.
And then Rossellini says, Fellini says he describes their relationship as more cat and fox instead of master and apprentice.
Cat and fox.
Whatever that means.
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't really.
Yeah, like,
I need someone to explain that to me.
Yeah, exactly. No, but I guess I wanted to end on Fellini for some reason, but we'll get into Paisan the movie. First episode, it has a great moment in it. Okay, I guess I'll kind of set it up as like the.
These are all easy to explain, I feel.
Yeah.
Like.
Okay, we'll explain them and then I'll talk about my favorite. I don't want to go in detail because.
Yeah,
we've already kind of gone over details, but this one, a girl is helping these American soldiers pass through this kind of what would you call it, a chasm, a tunnel?
Some area.
Yeah.
It's like a castle, I think.
Yes.
There's like I don't know.
I thought it was like a farm or some shit. Honestly, I didn't know what it was.
It's like an area.
It's a building.
There's one like when we see him enter a church. The soldiers enter a church. Yeah. There's like one guy, just like some guy in the background, who says, if they set foot for here, they'll stay for good horizontally. It's like a funny quote. I mean, damn, like also predicting just American occupation of like the next 50 years in all these countries.
Yeah.
But yeah, then they like get in this church. That's when this girl, they kind of find out like to escape all these mines, they need someone from Italy to help them from this region to help them pass through the place, and they end up deciding on this girl. Yeah, so this girl takes them. It takes them through to the safe like tunnel part, and then they decide to split up. And this girl stays alone with this one of the Italian. I forgot why.
Oh, no, it's American.
Yeah,
The
it's
American,
American.
American soldier, but I forget why they pick him specifically.
I don't remember.
Yeah, they say he's a tower expert, I guess. So
Yeah.
they're like, you're staying here with her. But really, this whole thing is for a setup for this specific moment.
Yeah, the kind of like language barrier.
Yes,
that,
this is like the first kind of
transcends.
I've said we see a bunch of these kind of interactions with the Americans and Italians in this movie.
Yeah.
This is like the first example of that. Is this idea of like basically there's almost like impossibility of communication between the two.
Yes.
And that's kind of like how we see most of the scene is like them like not having any understanding what the other is saying.
In terms of their words, yeah.
In terms of the words, and they start understanding more like almost like the less they talk in a way.
Yes,
like,
exactly.
there's like a great moment where he says something like where they both become completely silent, and he says like, "Oh, it's even silent like this back home."
Yes.
And to me, that's even more like silence is like the same everywhere in a way.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
So I would agree.
Yeah.
I mean, we've talked about that with
Yeah.
Sai, obviously.
Yeah.
Sai does not believe language is the best way to communicate. So.
No. I mean, to me, if you're a filmmaker, you shouldn't believe that.
No.
Yeah.
But I mean, maybe I'm lying about that. I don't know. Maybe like Rumor's different.
Yeah, I'll say.
I don't know. But still, Rumor.
I don't know what Romer would
I
think.
don't
Yeah.
There's more literature oriented. I still like certain films like that, but then there's like the shooting star. This is also a
Yes.
great moment too.
Yes. Yes.
Because there's that moment where she's like, I'm pretty sure she says Stella Cadente. I'm pretty sure that means shooting star.
Is it okay?
Probably.
It would make more sense if that means shooting star, because then he's like, no,
Stella,
no.
stellar, like.
Because he's like, no, not Stella Cadente, shooting star.
The shot of this too, like
He tells
he's like
the-
framing it too, like within the. It's like you see
The
kind of the
little
sky
window.
behind him, but it's like in there in the cave. Still.
Yes, that little window.
Yeah,
through, like,
yes,
the
the
rocks
window.
thing.
Yeah.
Also, there's that funny moment where he's like naming all the Italian words he does know, where he's like Paisan, spaghetti, bambina, some other ones I can't pronounce, and then he says her name too, which is kind of sweet at the end. And then this is the last this is honestly Rossellini kind of keeps you on your toes through, and I'll quote in a second how Talga describes it, but it's like that. It's like where we. First, the silence. That's like another similar moment, and the next similar moment they have is where he's actually just showing her images of his family back home.
Yeah,
You know, because that's like an easier, like I just said, filmmakers.
I mean, yeah, we've really
to
talked
be a
about
filmmaker, images,
Yeah.
exactly.
That's why film is so universal in a way.
Yes.
The image.
So yeah, he's showing her the picture of his sister and his family and stuff, and then like just because you can't get too happy.
No, yeah.
He gets shot like right after.
It's insane.
Like it's literally like
It was
it's almost like
insane.
right when this moment of understanding happens. Like almost to make you realize it. Like this is the moment of understanding. He gets shot right after.
Yeah.
And then.
Well, the Americans,
She kind of it almost just cuts away almost like all of a sudden
it like detaches
away,
you.
away to the German soldiers now.
Well, he's kind of he's like I guess this is maybe the
detaches you from the story.
Well, it's kind of a Rossellini thing where he kind of like likes to like zoom out and zoom in to the story. Like gets very intimate, but then also like kind of zooms out to kind of like take you out of it.
Let
We'll
me
talk
read
about next week.
I mean, you saying is almost another way what Tal Gallagher says about this part. He says, then out of the blue, Joe is shot. We thought the love story was privileged, but no, another subplot. A bunch of German soldiers wandering around in the night has imposed itself and destroyed the privilege. Heroes then are impotent, or nearly so. For in company with the shooting stars that briefly streaked across this dark world's dome, we spot sparks of an indomitable moral force, a will to resist, though even futilely. So it's basically just these brief moments, and then it's like he says, "I love that part." It's like we thought the love story was privileged, but no. Then right away another stuff. It's like it's almost like messy in a way that it cuts. Like, just all of a sudden to just like that's why you could see an American critic that sees films a certain way, seeing this as just like a way Godard's early movies were described as messy. With these kind of like just out of the blue cuts like to a new story or something. And it's like normally if you're telling a love story like this, you keep going with the same love story. Or even if you do cut to the Germans, it has something to do with the love story. You know,
like
it kind of does have. I mean, it does obviously.
Well, it will do, but it's like not from their perspective anymore. It's,
not from their perspective.
The way even she even dies is so sudden. You know?
Oh, dude, her death's so sudden. I love how it cuts to the Germans though, because the Germans, it literally drives home that point of like, he's basically just messing with the love story in general, because the Germans are like, why'd you shoot, man? There was nothing even up there. And it's like, damn, this guy literally just died because some German was like, he thought he saw something, basically. And he did. I mean, like, he was right. But all of the other Germans were like, dude, like, you're just seeing shit. Like, they were just giving him shit for shooting.
Yeah, it's like this.
It's like, damn, dude.
Well, also, I feel like it's interesting, too, that he he cuts to the soldiers right as he's shot, too. Like, I feel like a lot of movies, if they were to do this, they would cut to them before they would shoot him, and they'd be kind of like talking about, oh, they're there, and then boom.
Yeah,
but it's like so surprising that he cuts like right after he's shot. Basically.
Well, the shot is
you're not even aware to their, you're not even like hinted at their presence. Like,
but to me, that's another example of like countering the neo-realistic documentary aspect. This is the neo-realistic, like a director showing his style. You know, like immediately after the point is made.
Yeah.
Like literally immediately after the point is made of like these two people connecting. They die and he cuts to a new story, you know, and like as they're walking in, like they're saying these kind of funny quotes. Like one of them says, "War is like children's games, except the bullets are real. I could get romantic here." Yeah. Like he's like, and one of them calls like all these like underground. It's not underground. I don't know how to describe this like place they're walking through.
It looks like
caves or something. I guess
it looks like a farm to me, man.
But these like rocks that they're hiding.
No, it's a castle. I'm pretty sure because you see it from the like
because it has like this little hay. It has like hay down there. That's why I was like, it looks like a farm.
The exterior like literally is like a castle.
Okay.
Let me see if I can.
Do you see it from the exterior? He is a tower expert apparently. So.
Like
I guess,
it would make sense.
The ruins of a castle.
It would make sense.
Yeah, literally. That's what I was kind of getting at. But
okay. That would make sense. Yeah, but one of them says it's like the afterlife in there. Then basically as they're walking in, they find the girl first, and they ask her. They're like, we don't know what they're gonna do to her. There's this like kind of tense moment. Like we don't know what these soldiers are gonna do, but all they ask for is water. Like they're so desperate for water. Are you showing me what it looks like? Okay, yeah. But anyway, they're so desperate for water. They ask. They just let her go, and hopefully they'll find. They're hoping she'll bring out water.
Yeah.
But then they come back. I think they keep. I forget why, but they keep walking or something. And they find her with the soldier.
Yeah.
Well, no, she comes back.
She
because she finds a gun, or she like go. It's because it's like a castle. She just like goes out and then goes back to where the soldier where she left the soldier to see how he's doing basically, and she sees he's dead and shit. So.
Yeah. She picks up because they discover the soldier. And then right after it shows that she died as well.
Well, that's the Americans discovering the soldier.
Okay. Oh wait, no, we're talking about the.
So
because the Germans, because right now, like she escaped from the Germans in air quotes just to like go below and check on the American soldiers. She sees he died, then grabs his gun, I think, and then she goes up and.
Yes, that's what it is. Yeah. She like basically like this is kind of the moment of like.
This is the impulse
moment for her. It's like even though they've barely communicated. And honestly, you could say also a very cinematic moment too of like, just through one interaction on a screen, all of a sudden you're willing to die for the person.
Yeah.
You know, but yeah, she goes and like basically sacrifices her life, like, and it's just the way she does it. Just it's not even dramatic. You know, it's like very undramatic. She dies, and then the soldiers end up seeing. I think it's the American. Soldiers come back.
It's very sad.
Yeah, because they just think she's stupid. Like they call her that dirty little eye tie. Basically,
they thought that
they blame her.
They blame her for the death, basically. Yeah. So,
but it's the idea of no one knew what actually happened.
Yeah,
it's like, damn. That's why it's like it's only a moment. You know, it's only these moments of like.
And it's only significant for those two people.
Yeah, literally.
Well, and more importantly, there's the third person you're feeling.
Oh
yeah, yes. That's the most important. Yes. Okay, but yeah, the second episode. I think Blake said this might be my favorite.
It's probably my favorite. It's so good.
This one's really good.
Let me read this. I guess a critic has made this point, but Gallagher says this critic named Serkow has pointed out how Rossellini, in contrast to Zico's small boy films, refuses to identify the spectator's point of view with the boys, refuses to allow the boy to be merely a symbol of need or the plight of his class, and instead, more Marxist than Marxist, emphasizes the distance, the contradictions between the boy and the soldier. It is far from clear who is victim and who is exploiter.
Oh.
Yeah, that's what I love with this kid. It's like, yeah, he's not just like this kind of victim, you know. And also I've noticed something too. I'll mention next. So like both of these also have stories of the American forgetting who the Italian is. This one is like literally the next day.
Oh yeah.
But this one is like the later one's like 6 months later or something.
This one, the later one's like real crazy because you think in like 6 months you've changed this much that you don't even recognize the person. This one's just like the guy was blackout drunk the night before, so that makes sense. But
apparently this is a thing with kids. Like they get Americans drunk and they would steal from them.
That's
they would
why
pay
I was
to steal
like,
from them when they sleep or something.
Well, I was wondering where this was leading because I didn't know like this was like a thing in Italy. I guess like I mean I knew like child gangs, like we've talked about this before. Like this happens obviously. Yes. Like especially in places like this, like war-torn places, like kids have to band together to live because no one else is going to look after them. And so I was like, is he going to like lead this guy, like kill him or some shit and like steal all this stuff? But no, it was way more.
I mean, this kid
not that part, but still stealing from him. But I mean, hey.
No, but like you're saying, like it's not like you kind of see why. Like you understand why. I mean, even the soldier starts up. That's his moment. That's his moment at the end, you know. But to me, first of all, watching this kid, and there's a moment in Germany Year Zero too that's similar, but especially this kid is like the biggest influence on 400 Blows kid. Like just the way he's shot, like he's shot as an adult, you know, like the way they're interacting too. It's like they're all interacting as adults, but they're all kids, you know. I mean, it's almost like a comedy in a certain way. Like you're like, damn, these kids should not be doing like what they're doing.
Well, you obviously there's also a connection you make with Los Soldados here for sure.
No, I felt Los Soldados this entire movie for sure.
Although
Honestly,
I don't know if Buñuel liked Rossellini, probably not. But like,
I don't know, I didn't see it. I actually think Rossellini liked a Buñuel movie from what I remember, but
oh really?
Well, because like what's the Streetcar Travels by Desire?
You just mix like 5 different titles together.
Damn.
Okay.
Streetcar Named Desire.
Illusion Travels by Streetcar.
Illusion Travels by Streetcar. It's very similar to this.
You mix both of those movies.
It's very similar to this movie and just showing you like distinct or like different parts of the city basically almost. This one's showing you different Italian.
I mean, Los Soldados is also with the kids. I can see too.
Yeah.
No, honestly, they have some similarities for sure. Basically, we're seeing how these kids like make money. First by like advertising for like the street performer, and then he goes and like gets some money for like standing guard for the police, to watch out for the police. Then like we see how they get like American soldiers drunk and then like pay to rob them later, which is amazing. No, not amazing. Don't arrest me.
I think statute of limitations are fine.
No, I love America.
I love them.
He loves imperialism. He admitted it.
But then we see this black soldier who is drunk, and they're like, all these kids are fighting over who's going to get to rob him and stuff. And this is also another. There's a moment in Germany Year Zero, but also in 400 Blows, where like, even though we've seen these kids act as adults, it's even worse for them. Because they're still kids at the end of the day. Yeah. Like, they get ripped off because, like, an adult comes in and takes the guy. He's like, I'm paying, this is all I'm paying, and you get out of here. Like, there's a moment like that in Germany Year Zero. And there's also a moment like that in 400 Blows, like, with the typewriters. Yeah.
The Germany Year Zero one's so, like...
Yeah, that one's
so
sad. I mean, yeah.
Because, we'll get to it.
But then, as, like, I think the police are coming... I forget what even causes the chaos, but anyway, the kid comes and takes the black soldier and runs away.
Dude, the shots of the kid just like
dragging the
soldier like during through the city is I love those shots so much.
And then they go to like a puppet show to hide.
Oh, such good, so cool. So
this might be the best looking of the episodes, honestly.
Okay,
just because like the way he's using he's using these like background shots of the city, but also like using the sets really interestingly, like the rubble and stuff. Yes. It's amazing. Especially there's a shot here where like they're like both sitting on top of rubble and you can see like a tower in the background in the shot. This shot's amazing. Like, oh my god.
Oh, dude, that's my favorite part of this entire scene is the harmonica in that shot. I love the puppet show too, though, because like the guy starts.
That's all I was gonna say. That's the only thing I was gonna mention about the puppet show is like, I don't know what he's trying to say. The soldier all of a sudden, he's like just watching. And he
Well,
can't help
I
but
think
get
he's
involved.
identifying with the Moor
they're showing,
puppet.
yes,
That's the
yes.
villain in the story.
And then he starts
he
to-
goes and attacks the hero.
Damn. No, anyway, yeah. Then he just starts causing chaos, and then it cuts to this like what Blake is saying Luke was saying when they're sitting in the rubble,
Oh, it's so good.
and they're just having this long conversation. In a way, also showing like the impossibility of communication. Like, is this kid even hearing anything he's saying in the first place?
Yeah.
But it's still great to watch as the kid starts playing the harmonica, and then the soldier mentions the title of the movie. I think we already heard of Paisan once, but he's like, "Come on, Paisan, let me try it." It's also interesting how this is how he remembers the kid later on.
Yeah.
He doesn't remember him by his face, but he remembers the harmonica.
Yes.
Which is kind of interesting.
I mean, and also kind of a thing that happens. I think it's the next one with the prostitute one, like almost like not even remembering a face in a way.
No,
or just not remembering in
Yes,
general.
Yes, exactly.
In a way, it's kind of like the opposite of this in a way. Like he
But
doesn't remember.
I think that's also a comment on like how the Americans saw the Italians, and honestly, how Americans saw a lot of the countries they were just going into.
Yeah.
You know.
Although I guess the soldier, well, no, the woman did remember.
No, neither one of them remember.
No, the woman remembered.
Beginning.
No, the woman remembered.
No, the woman
Not at the beginning.
No, she doesn't remember the guy.
No, until he tells the story.
Yeah,
That's when
exactly.
she remembers
Yes,
him.
yes,
That's
yes.
why.
That's why I said it was like so. That one's kind of like really depressing because they've only been apart 6 months and they've changed this much. Both of them have changed that much that they don't even recognize each other after 6 months. Like that's insane.
Yeah,
But no, yeah, we'll get to that one. But yeah, it's honestly the sad moments of just like for both these people because like, I think it's significant he chooses a black soldier here too, because like he's obviously drunk, but he's there's that part where he's saying like I'm going. He's like daydreaming of his like big homecoming to America, and he's like, come with me to New York, and he pretends like they're flying on the plane over, and he gets this big reception and stuff, and then he starts saying like he starts saying going home over and over again happily, and then he changes midway to saying I don't want to go home. He says my home is an old tin shack. I don't want to go home. And it's like this moment of like, damn, like this person that's here liberating another country doesn't even want to go back to his own country. And that would make sense, especially for a black person, way more than a white person in America.
Well, and it shows how the military works.
Yes,
it likes
also,
to, it
yes,
likes to get, it likes to
yes,
get the people
exactly.
from those areas. So.
No, especially when they come back, they're treated like shit.
Yeah.
But, yeah, that's basically after that he falls asleep too. And then, like right as he's falling asleep, the kid says, "If you sleep, I'll steal your shoes."
Yeah.
And like it's a funny moment, but Rossellini saw this as basically one of the biggest moments in the movie. First of all, because it kind of goes to what we were saying, how I mentioned how this kid is not just a victim. You know, like he kind of has like some knowledge of what he's doing. Because this is what Rossellini says. He says, "There's a line that has enormous importance for me. When the Negro is falling asleep and the child tells him, 'Watch out if you sleep, I'll steal your shoes.' He does not go to sleep. He goes to sleep and the kid does steal his shoes. That's correct. That's normal. That's the extraordinary game where the limits of morality are." He's basically saying like morality is way more complex than, you know, the poor one is like the innocent one, you know, and the oppressor is like the evil one, you know. It's like more complicated, especially with these two people that are almost just involved in it, you know.
Yeah.
But then it cuts to, it's like so immediate. He says, "I'll steal your shoes," and it cuts to like the next. I think it's the next day. Almost.
Yeah,
I don't know if it's actually the next
Well,
day.
he's like on duty.
Yeah, he's on duty.
Military police.
Yeah, like we haven't even seen the stealing happen. We basically already know it's probably happen. But he's like in a military police car. He looks up and he sees the same kid, stealing from a different van.
Yeah.
And he doesn't know it's the same kid. As we find out, he just thinks it's a different kid stealing. And he stops the kid, and doesn't recognize him. And he's like, "Oh, just kids like you, you know." He's like complaining about him and stuff. And then he even says, "Just 3 days ago, a little hoodlum like you stole the shoes right off my feet."
Yeah.
Like literally looking right at his face and still doesn't recognize him. But then as he's searching him, he finds the harmonica.
Yeah.
And then he says, "It was you." And then the kid's like, "I told you not to go to sleep."
Yeah.
He was honest. But then there's this But then the guy's like, no, I want my shoes back. And
He
he's like,
basically
"Go
makes
take
him
your
lead
shoes."
him
Yeah, he makes him
to
to
his
lead
house.
to his mom and dad.
Yeah.
He thinks
Yeah.
anyway. And then he sees all these people just in this one area, and he's kind of like,
It's the slums, basically.
yeah, the
It's like almost like a hidden kind of like
Yeah.
area.
And that's kind of apparently for Tag Out says that's a Rossellini theme too, of like these characters going into these like kind of cave like tunnels or whatever just to find the truth. Because we see the same thing in the first episode too, and in this one, of like he walks past all these people. This kid first brings him these shoes. He's like, wait, he's like happy, and he's like, wait a second, these aren't my shoes. How many shoes do you have back there? And then he's like, then he walks further in. And then he's like, "Oh, what are your parents?" And that's when the kid's like, "I don't have any parents. They both died in the war."
Like the bombs.
Yes, yeah. He starts describing that and stuff. And then this is like, it's very like, this is not very later Rossellini. This kind of music, this very sentimental music that starts rising, and the guy, but it's a very like, it's still this moment that he realizes,
Yeah.
what the actual.
Well, I think it's deserved.
No, the music works, especially for this moment.
Yeah.
Like, he has this moment of realization of like, this is what this kid's situation is, you know.
Yeah, like I was being a dick earlier about it. But...
And it's just like these quick shots of, we see him drop his shoes. The kid is just looking at the soldier, and then it cuts back to the soldier driving off.
Yeah.
And that's the end of this second episode.
So good.
Yeah. The third episode is it's called the Po Delta. No, actually no. This is the I guess we call it the prostitute episode.
Okay, yeah, the prostitute. Yeah.
The prostitute and the soldier.
Tag Alec calls this his like his most conventional episode. He says it's the most different from the other ones. He says, quote, "It's the only episode in which the film leaves us feeling comfortable with our understanding of the facts we have seen and how they're connected. While Paisan's other episodes are situations with an encounter, and he calls this one the Rome episode, Rome is an encounter with a situation." Which, I mean, that's kind of interesting to think about, but basically this starts with this girl, woman. Well, actually, I haven't mentioned this, but I should. Every episode, like Blake mentioned this with the Yakuza Space Credits, I guess, but like every episode of this starts with a documentary, like newsreel footage,
like,
and then like there's a narration too,
on, like what's happening.
Yeah, and it literally has nothing to do with like almost like the rest of the story.
No,
it's just saying
it's just
the
setting
time
up like
and
where it
place.
is, yeah,
the time and place,
exactly,
and to basically just show how
and which part of like
is.
the American liberation.
It's
is
contrasting the stories with the kind of like overarching war going on.
It's kind of showing how pointless all this chaos is, especially at this close, like at this point in the war, because at this point in the war, very, very certain Germany was going to lose, and so that's why a lot of the stuff that happens in this, you're like, damn, they just need to last like 3 more months.
Yeah,
and they couldn't. So,
I mean,
what makes it so sad.
Yes, no. Especially with
because the Germans like the last one spells it out for you, because
yeah.
the Germans don't want to leave. They're going to fight till they're done, basically.
Yeah.
It's kind of what makes it sad, but
this one is interesting though, because so it starts with this almost like we see the city called Anzio, I think. It says the city hadn't been destroyed as much as others, and they're really happy for the American liberators that are coming. And we see like kind of happy footage of them all celebrating the tanks and stuff entering the city, and then it cuts to 6 months later, and that's when we see. To me, like in my notes, I had like this. It's almost like a Fleming like shot when he shows an omnichord of the town at night, when he's like, we see that carriage go across the town, and he's like slowly showing everyone. It's like a shot kind of like that, where he's like showing the city at night, and like we hear this guy in the background like selling cigarettes.
Yeah.
But then it's like basically showing this Italy that's been liberated 6 months later is not what you're expecting, you know. But then we see like these 2 Italian women get in a fight at a bar as they're like both like fighting over Americans apparently.
Yeah.
The cops come, and they all have to run, and we follow one of the prostitutes who's like running from the cops. She gets help from like. She's like running. She hides at this like ticket entrance. Who like this woman helps her out. Honestly, that's just like a almost like a random moment. Like it's like she goes and hides in this like ticket entrance place. She's like, I'm hiding from the cops, and that person who's taking the ticket, she has to make a decision of whether or not she's gonna hide her or not, and she agrees, and the cops come, and she's like, "There's no one here."
Yeah.
And that's just like almost like a small example of this woman just choosing in a moment to like help this other woman out.
Yeah.
But then we keep following this prostitute. She goes, this is where she also doesn't recognize the American man at first, because it's like just an American guy. Who she's
I think it's a
pick up.
point maybe he's trying to make too by having all those prostitutes at the beginning, that like all of them have kind of like these different stories in a way.
Yes.
We're just following this woman for it.
Yes.
For this instance.
No, I agree. And honestly, this is where it makes it more or poetic and cinematic. It's obviously not like realistic for them to not really notice each other like this, you know.
Well,
but it's this idea of the story, right? Like 6 months later, everything is way more different than this romanticized meeting they had at the first place.
Yeah.
You know,
like
this is the more realistic meeting between the two.
Yeah.
Not a soldier liberating like. It's
like they're more. It's like down to earth now.
Yes. Yeah. It's kind of more reality of this kind of Italy, post liberation in a way.
Mm-hmm.
But then we cut to, like, she takes him to her room. He seems really drunk. He's not even really that into it and stuff.
Yeah. Well, he just wants to tell her about
this story
about this woman.
This woman he met 6 months ago, when they first entered, and why how Italy back then was so hopeful, you know, compared to the Italy now. He even said something like the woman seemed so much different back then. But then basically, it's actually, this is where I'm saying this is not my favorite story either, because it is kind of a long flashback. Honestly, like, I don't know how many times Rossellini even uses flashback like this.
I kind of like this flashback.
Okay.
I don't know why. Like, I guess I kind of like I find the story interesting. Like it's probably a big reason why I really like Letter from an Unknown Woman. Kind of this story.
Honestly, it kind of has this kind of thing. Yeah. This guy not realizing
fumbling the bag.
Yeah.
You know.
But see, this is not more fumbling bag. This is more this idea of like, to me at least anyway, the story is about how that initial meeting was never real. Of that initial.
Well, I mean, yeah, that's yeah.
You know,
good
versus
point,
Letter is almost the opposite.
That's the better way to say it. Yeah.
Because like it kind of ends really brutally too. This whole thing, like there's no good moment because like it ends with.
Although him not reading the note that was in his pocket is him fumbling the bag.
It is, but it's in a way like that's who he was. That's what I'm saying. That's his true self.
Okay, yeah.
You know,
true, yeah.
Because like he after he tells the story, she's like, I know where she lives. Here's the address. You can go see her tomorrow, and she'll be waiting for you. Don't worry. And she runs off like hopeful still.
Yeah.
And then this is like another very melodramatic moment. She's like literally standing in the rain, like with water coming down on her, and he's like. He just tosses it. He's like, add her civil horror. That's he tosses it, and then we see the soldiers drive off, and that's how the movie ends. Yep. So the fourth episode, this is what I was saying. It's not my favorite, but it's basically, I guess you could say, the search for the painter. It is kind of interesting how they make it this painter is the one that died. You know, almost you could say like art is like the artist has died in a way. You know.
Yeah.
Because like. We see this American woman who I think she's like a Red Cross nurse. Yeah. I don't know if she's Red Cross, but yeah, she's a nurse. She wants to get to this city because she wants to see Lupo the painter.
Yeah,
And we see this other guy who's searching for his family, and so they have like a common cause of
getting to
this other side. And that's basically like a lot of this is not words. You have to watch just kind of the way the camera moves as it's following these two characters throughout. Like I said, like real rubble. You know,
the way they like design it. Wait, is this shot on location? This one?
A lot of it was.
Okay.
But some of it wasn't as well. But this one definitely seems like it to me.
Yeah. Yeah. There are some shots where I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
Because
they would have to have a big ass soundstage to shoot that on set.
There are some moments in this where I'm just like, we've seen German snipers basically having these long streets in their sights, and then these two people are just running down long streets, and I'm like, you guys gotta get out of the street, man. Like, oh my god.
No, honestly, that's some of the best parts of these of this movie too. Like, this is gonna be a weird movie to bring up, but it actually kind of makes sense. What movie are we gonna bring up right now? Especially the part
Full Metal Jacket.
No, it's the part.
You know why I brought that? You know why.
We're basically after the part where they've asked this guy who decides to help them. This is like another little moment of he's the one who's like watching this kind of bridge where they're hiding this passageway where it's like secret because they don't want the Germans to know about it, and like it's like their only way of communication. but he still agrees to tell these people where it is and stuff, even though he doesn't have to. And he even gives some advice of like he says try to get the Red Cross armband to help you.
Yeah.
But he's like even then they're still shooting like the Red Cross sometimes. Like you don't even know the Germans. But it's like after all this where they actually cross in a way and they're on the other side and they're like walking. They're on like a second or third story building and they're like looking through the window as they're walking and stuff. It's some of my favorite shots. There's like
Wait, what movie do you think you're saying?
well, okay, because there's a shot where like they're looking through the window and the camera kind of goes over them and it goes like over almost like right to the window and we see like in wide like these really small soldiers like walking below and stuff. But like all this occupation stuff, it reminds me a little of Dark Knight Rises.
Dark Knight Rises.
Where they're occupying the
like,
city.
where are you
no,
going,
when they're
bro?
occupying
Where
the
are you
city,
going,
when they're
bro?
occupying the city is like empty and stuff, and the only way they can communicate is like these like people just like coming out of the blue and like
That's
they
the
have to,
funniest
like,
movie
avoid
you
the
could have brought
snipers.
up.
It
It's
really
Dark
is,
Knight
honestly.
Rises,
It
bro.
really is.
You don't see it? Also, I can see some like George Lucas, like the way he films The Empire too, in some of this, like. Because, like, it just, like, they seem so intimidating the way, like, there's so few of them, like, especially when he's filming from, like, the top
Let me see
story.
the shot.
I don't know where.
Find the shot. I gotta see the shot he's talking about because I don't remember this. I'm not thinking grand scale like this. I
Like,
guess.
all these shots of, like, the city with the soldiers empty and stuff.
Okay, it's like empty and
like, stuff
stuff.
like that.
Okay.
So this is the
Might
Dark.
be-
Is there Dark Knight Rises?
But there's also a shot later on where we see how they're passing water to each other. And they have to, like, the way,
No,
the way
yeah,
they
yeah,
snipers
yeah,
is they have to,
yeah.
like, push this wheel,
Yeah,
like,
the cart.
this wheel,
Yeah,
this
this
wheel cart
cart or
across,
whatever.
and they're like, oh, get in, and they have to, like, push it back and stuff. It's like these... I mean, it makes sense, because, like, that's also an occupied city of people just trying to follow.
Okay.
Dark Knight Rises threw me for a loop. I'm not gonna lie.
I knew.
Yeah.
That's why I was trying to set it up. But all those shots too are so good. Like especially like the, I don't know. They seem so intimidating because I think the way he shoots it too. Most of them are shot in sunlight too. They're all in like bright sunlight, but the streets are so empty. You know,
Yeah.
it just like intimidating because of that. And then we see that shot of like the 4 Red Cross people and just like the black hoods, and they're all just like walking.
Carrying
In
a
an
wheelbarrow.
empty, a wheelbarrow with an empty street and stuff. And I already mentioned like the rolling cart with the water. But then basically the scene kind of ends like just all of a sudden where like I honestly don't know exactly how to describe it. Like the guy just all of a sudden runs because he wants to see his family across the street, and then people just start getting shot. Like
Yeah.
because it's not that guy that gets shot; it's someone else, almost like
Yeah.
random.
Yeah.
That gets shot.
But he like knows that like.
Well, yeah, we know. Yeah, he knows the Lugo or Lupo. Or
Yeah,
whatever the
while
guy's
he's
name
dying,
is,
he like
yeah.
mentions like he's like
This was another melodramatic moment
Yes,
where
it
I was
is.
like, okay.
This is what I was saying. Lupo must represent, like, as a
Yeah.
painter, represent something. Because first he says, "Mama, I feel cold inside," which is like, damn, that's a brutal line. But then he's like, "Everything's gone badly today since Lupo died," and that's like basically his last words.
Hmm.
But it's weird that it's like you would think at least going to be the guy, the father that dies, but it's like the movie just completely forgets about that guy. I don't even know if we see him die. I don't think he does.
I don't know if we do.
I even went back and I don't think.
I'm pretty sure it ends on her, doesn't it?
No, it ends on
Yeah.
her and this random guy that
Yeah.
died. But I'm like, where did this other guy
It
go?
almost
They were
doesn't-
just
he just ran
following
away.
it,
It
you know?
almost doesn't matter.
Yeah. Um,
He's on another movie, you know.
yeah.
He's off to another movie.
But then the next episode is episode 5. Like this honestly might be my favorite.
I like
And,
this one a lot.
It's funny if you haven't seen Flowers of St. Francis yet.
Not yet.
You can tell this movie in a way is like at least a foreshadowing of that movie. There's even one of the monks is the same guys in that one. And I kind of mentioned how a lot of this movie was filmed like they would go from like, different places in Italy and like kind of think of the stories on the spot and stuff, and that's how Fellini was being used a lot. But there was a time where like Rossellini like he was having romantic issues and stuff or whatever, and so he like flew back to Rome or something, and so it was just the producer and Fellini who like found this like monastery.
Damn.
And the monastery, like, they let them stay there.
So this is a Fellini short, basically?
Well, he first he got the first story idea.
Okay.
So let me read what he says. He says, "Quote: this was Fellini. Since I had often been placed in religious pensions when I was little, I went inside with great interest, and I encountered an atmosphere of infinite grace, almost like a pastel. There were 5 or 6 monks, very poor and extremely simple." And then the producer had also said they were invited to dinner just like it was in the film. And then Fellini also mentions how later he then got Rossellini to come also meet the monks and stuff, and that's where he wrote the story later on. But really, this is the last Fellini quote I read because he kind of describes this whole episode really well. Because I've been mentioning how a lot of this movie is about encounters between two groups, American liberators and Italians. This one's the most interesting to me in some ways because like it seems like the American has like the chaplain has more good point, like more Rossellini, just you see more on his side than compared to more of some of the other episodes.
Yeah.
Where you could kind of see some of the points they're making about the monks being like closed off, where so Fellini says, quote, an encounter between some American chaplains and Italian monks, that is, between two types of religion, an active faith such as soldier priests might have, and that very meditative faith, made only of prayers, which exists in certain medieval convents found in Italy. Not only in Italy, but found in Italy. So basically this idea of active faith versus meditative faith, I guess Fellini is the way he describes it in this movie. But it cuts to... Honestly, one of my...
I like the active faith versus meditative faith because you can even see some of the monks in there wanting to be more active faith members. Like that one monk that... I think the guy left his helmet and he picked it up and like acted like he was putting it on, like started walking around before like taking it out and saying he left it and everything, so...
No, that's interesting. Damn. No, honestly, and the way they react to some of the American stuff is so funny.
Yeah.
But this beginning of this episode is some of my favorite stuff in Rossellini. Like first, like it shows the outside of the monastery, and then it shows like this monk just smiling as he looks out the window. It's a great shot, and then we hear some music as the monks are like. It's like this great shot of just the monks shooing the chickens outside of the monastery into the yard, and like the music is playing as we see all the monks like in a circle as they all like start to pray. Yeah. And he says, brothers, let us thank the Lord who has delivered us from all danger. And it's like this great music, too. It's honestly probably the best music in the movie. But then right after that, we see it cuts to the American chaplains arriving at the monastery.
There's like one Catholic and then the Jew. And
we find this out. We don't know at first.
Okay, yeah.
Because this is like a big deal for the monks there.
Yeah.
But yeah, we find out one's Catholic, one's Jew, and one's Protestant.
A Catholic, a Jew, and a Protestant walk into a monastery.
Walk into a Catholic monastery.
Walk into a Catholic.
Italian. You see, it's actually more important when you say American Catholic, American Jew, American Protestant. Walk into Italian Catholic monastery. And literally, the first things they're saying is. The Catholic one, his name is Captain Bill Martin, and he says, quote, I can't help think that by the time this monastery was built, why America hadn't even been discovered as yet. An immense wilderness, these walls, these olive trees, that church bell were already there. This time, the evening 500 years ago, everything had the same soft color. And then the other guy's like, is that from Shakespeare? And he's like, no, Captain Bill Martin.
No, Captain Bill Martin.
And the guy's like, I'm deeply moved, chappie, but I hope these monks are more up to date. It is a great moment. It is a great moment when he's honestly, I love that too.
I mean, we talked about this like with Fellini for sure because like Roma, like that's something we all mentioned. Roma is like it's a city that never dies. It's been here for 3,000 years or 2,000 years or whatever. Like
yes, it's like
just the amount of history like we can't comprehend. And I like that. That's basically what the chaplain's saying. He's like, I can't even comprehend all that's happened here, essentially, like the history that's been in this monastery.
And to me, like, it's like it has a different kind of, especially with that active versus meditative faith, because like this is especially a place that's tried to stay the same.
Yeah.
For the most part, over those 500 years, like even compared to like a city like Rome that changes obviously so much, a monastery is like tries to stay the same. They've tried to be sheltered.
Yeah.
Like Fellini even describes apparently how like these monks they barely knew anything about the war that happened. Like over the last 10 years and stuff, they didn't even know that much. Like even in real life, but then we see the monks meet and stuff. They ask to stay the night. There's a good moment where they're all like standing in a circle together, and he offers all of them cigarettes, and they all decline. But then they start offering Hershey's chocolate bars, and they all start getting like super excited and stuff. I'm just like, damn, it's a great moment.
I like that one guy.
Yeah, like, I was gonna mention, he's like, grazie. He's like so thankful, and then he like starts like even like praying like really grandiosely and stuff because the main head monk, he's like, okay, stop it.
He's like, all right, stop it. So funny.
He's like, we get it. It's like so funny. Yeah, because like Rossellini's making a point of the Hershey's bar too, like it's almost like Michael Bay-esque of like how obvious the American logo, like the logo is.
Ad
right?
placement.
Yeah, exactly. It looks like that because you see the Hershey's really clearly.
Did Hershey pay for this?
They probably didn't.
They probably did.
They weren't watching this shit.
Ross Lee would do anything for a bag, you know.
I mean,
you can't disagree.
No, but the way this guy's like
it
just
was so
accepting
good.
it's honestly
He
just a good
accepted it
symbol
as a
too.
prayer,
Yeah, accepting it like that is so funny too. That's just like another like almost like poetic moment of like accepting the American candy bar with like prayer hands.
Hands clasped in prayer.
But who can't relate though?
He was religious for that shit, bro.
Yes.
And we're about to do the same thing. We're about to do the same thing with the chocolate chip cookies later.
And then we get some like great moments of them like they do drink, I guess, or they offer.
No, they offer the chaplains.
They offer the chaplain, but they have them. They have it back there.
The wine. Well, I mean, they're Catholic.
I guess they drink wine.
Yeah.
But anyway, one of them says, "I don't drink wine."
Which one is this guy? Because I like this guy. Okay, the Protestant guy. I like the Protestant guy. He's funny.
Yeah,
he's the one that offered the chocolate, right?
I don't remember.
I'm pretty sure he's the one that offers the chocolate.
I think you're right. Yeah, because we do see him putting it up later. Like he has a big box.
He has a very distinct face. So.
Yes, he does. No, he does.
Because he was like, "Nope, I do not partake,"
yes,
something like that.
Honestly, you said I'm going to mention this next week about just like, or one of these weeks. I don't know. I haven't decided when about like how Rossellini viewed acting and actors in general. But that's a big like Fellini. We've talked about Fellini's the same thing. Is he cast with faces? Like, yeah, this guy has a very distinct face. Like the way he even interrupts too. He's like, I don't partake. No, you can tell like that guy's probably like that in real life. But,
yeah.
But there's like a moment where they're like opening canned milk. They're like shocked first of all that canned milk even exists. Because one of them says, "Oh, these Americans think of everything." Like, it's like a very Tati moment in like
No, Jordan Fee.
Or even Jordan Fee. Yeah.
No, yeah, actually, yeah.
It's a very just Tati theme in general of these like old people encountering like American technology. Because this other guy, he wants to try it, and he does like little pinky thing. He like tries it. He's like, "Oh, it's a milk," and he like, it's like a commercial almost. Or you're gonna cut to him smiling too, and he like just.
No, it's genuine though.
He does this like weird hand gesture.
Yeah.
I don't know if this is actual hand gesture. It probably is, I guess.
I don't know.
Because he's like, "Well, the caption says, well, I'll be," and he like does this like thing with his pinky. I wonder if it's like it's like an actual thing people do.
Yeah, it's like a slogan. Like.
Yeah. But then, like, the chaplains are talking among themselves because they see a 25-year-old, and this is where they're like, one of them asks the Catholic one, he's like, "Don't you think he's too young to be here?" And then he says, "No, he told me he always wanted this vocation, that since he was 10, he always wanted to enter this monastery." And then another one says, "I think one can really be in peace with this Lord without relieving himself from the world. After all, it was created for us. The world is our parish." And then another one says, "How can they judge us in life if they don't know what it's all about?" And this is the part where I was saying, like, it feels like Rossellini almost agrees with these guys, you know? Like, they're right. Like, you can, this is honestly a theme with Rossellini's later movies. Like, you can encounter, like, this world is created for us, you know? That's why he's so interested in it, instead of just shutting yourself off away from it like these monks seem to have done. You know, as he said, it's like, it feels like 25-year-olds is too old, is too young just to be in a monastery the rest of your life. But then we cut to these monks finding... it's just this great... It's almost like a comedic scene of this monk finding out that one of them is Jewish and the other is Protestant. But mainly you can tell he's worried about the Jewish one.
Yeah.
Even though he's mad about both. But he's like starts running around and like gossiping to everyone that he's Jewish. And everyone like... We get these shots of like everyone like finding out one by one how news passes in a monastery, you know, the old-fashioned way. But then it leads to the head monk doesn't seem that concerned about it compared to the other ones. But,
well, they are concerned because they're trying to stay out of worldly matters, and obviously the Nazis are after the Jews. So they don't want the Jews to come to their the Nazis to come to their to their doorstep.
No, that is true. But basically we get the scene of the Catholic priest at the monastery talking to the American chaplain Catholic just by himself, and they're basically trying to guilt him into like why he hasn't tried to convert them. Has he tried to convert them? You know, does he not care about their basically eternity?
Their eternal soul, whatever. And
there's like a great shot. Like I don't have it all written down, but there's a great shot of like after the American chaplain says like he doesn't feel guilty about not trying to convert them. He just like loves them as they are. There's like this great shot of them just like it's so funny on the way. Like they're just like they don't really buy what he's saying, but they're like okay, like. But then after that, it cuts to basically the beginning of this final scene of we're gonna see this dinner that they have, and we see this like I skipped it over, but we've already seen this scene of like the monk that's I guess the cook. He's basically like telling the head monk how like they basically have no food to cook for them.
Like he's like, what are we doing this for?
Yeah, he's
we
like,
have no food
how much do we
anyway.
have? He's like, we have some broccoli, banana, potato. He's like. And he's like, what about the pear tree? I saw that bearing fruit. And he's like, well, that's not going to be ripe for another month.
Till next year or whatever.
And he's like, I trust you. Just cook whatever. And so then we come back and we see just like a montage of all this cooking. It's interesting because we see in King Louis, another Rossellini movie, we see like a great scene of like how cooking would have looked back then too, like a long time. And this one kind of is like just that idea of like being able to cook with whatever you have because that's all you have, you know. You're trying to make something out of nothing.
I know. I've watched Donkey Skin. I know how cooking was done back in the day.
Right, yeah, that's the most accurate way. That's basically documentary.
But then it's funny because like it's almost like Rossellini does it just because you know he's gonna break this. Like the chaplains, the monk's already waiting for the dinner, and the chaplains right before they go in, they're like told. You're not allowed to talk during the meal.
It's their one rule,
It's
basically.
their one rule. It's like, of course this guy's gonna fucking break it.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
He's American, yes.
Yeah. No, but honestly, yeah, it feels like that in a way. Because they learn that all of the monks are fasting just because they want to save the two other souls. They think this might have a chance. Even one of the monks says, our human presumption leads us to hope that for this humble sacrifice we might receive a great reward from heaven. You know, trying to save them.
Yeah.
But after that, like the chaplain, it's a funny moment because the other two start eating, and of course this guy, the Catholic one, he's like, he doesn't know if he should eat or not because he's like, should I fast with them or like?
Yeah, he's conflicted.
Yes, exactly. And so that's where this confliction leads to this moment of like almost impulse, right? Because he's about to eat, and then it's like all of a sudden he's like just gonna break this rule, you know, because he feels like he has to, and he says. He like, of course, he starts talking, sitting down. Then he stands up and starts talking, and he says, "Here I found that peace of mind that I'd lost amid the horrors and misfortune of war. A beautiful and moving lesson in humility, simplicity, and pure faith. Pax hominibus bone voluntas," which apparently means, "May there be glory in the God in the highest on earth." But basically, yeah, like he has this moment. All of a sudden, he just like. I guess you could say, I don't know, what do you guys think of this moment is for him? To me, it's like almost like a moment of humility. Like, these monks are willing to do all this just for them, you know? Yeah. Even if he still thinks they're wrong. You know, to me, he never thinks they're right, but
yeah,
he still sees, like, how much they're willing to sacrifice for them, you know, like, almost this kind of love. But, I don't know, what do you guys think? Like,
I mean, I like that reading. I mean, because they're sacrificing food not even just because to save their soul, but I mean, like, they don't have enough.
Yeah, they
either,
don't.
so,
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
I mean, yeah.
You could say it's that way, too.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't really know why he feels the impulse. I guess it is just because he's feeling very grateful.
Yeah,
Maybe
that's
that's all
basically
it
what it
is.
says, yeah.
Yeah. Is this the longest episode, too?
It might be.
Is the 6th episode not longer? I feel like it's
I
longer.
don't know, I didn't keep track of the time of them.
This one's like 20 minutes long, I think. And the last one's like maybe like 18, 19.
Okay.
So.
About the same.
Actually, maybe not. Actually,
I mean, you could say like what
I
Ross
think they're about the same length.
like Fellini said about the active faith versus the meditative faith. You could say this is him learning more and more about that meditative side of
Yeah,
life,
but just finding your inner peace or whatever.
Yeah,
there's
just
there's
like-
value in that too.
Yeah, this kind of aspect of reality, you know. But yeah,
Well, yeah,
yeah,
helps you reset.
yeah. But yeah, we'll go to this last episode. It's called the Poe Delta episode. And Tag Gallagher says he calls this a great Italian nationalist populist masterpiece. This episode, he says, it arose from the people as few films have done, and fulfilled art's prime social function at a moment of unparalleled need. It is also Rossellini's most extreme experiment in off-the-cuff filmmaking, and not just in the way the picture was conceived and executed. Much more than in Sicily, there is an impression of enormous ellipsis, or better gaps, as Bazin puts it. Rather than the usual filming method, in which the actions of a filmmaker selects to show have been crafted to mesh effortlessly into a logically developing story, Rossellini's facts seem to maintain their autonomy, and to require our active effort to find the story. And he quotes Bazin twice as about this episode. The mind has to leap from one event to the other, the way one jumps from stone to cross a river. And then another quote is, facts are facts. Our imagination makes use of them, but serving our imagination is not their a priori function. Does that kind of make sense? It's like, usually when we see a fact in a film, it's to serve our imagination. But he's almost saying, like, these facts almost feel like they're on their own in a way. You know, you almost said that in the beginning of this episode. It's like, he's almost like just showing these stories, you know, as is.
Yeah.
But yeah. Also this idea of ellipsis, because even as I was trying to take notes as I'm watching this episode, it's kind of hard, because I'm like, okay, this happened, but then he cuts something almost like, you can tell it's part of the same, like, story, but it's not necessarily exactly...
No, yeah, that's what you're saying.
Like, the same characters in the story, you know?
Yeah, kind of jumps around.
Yeah. But it kind of starts with like I said, the documentary footage again, and we see just this body floating that says partisan on it. So we know, like, how partisans are being treated by Germans if they help Americans. That kind of just, like, sets the tone right there. But then we see, like, these Americans and partisans both hiding in the marsh together, and
rescuing these, like, down
British
guys.
Yes. One of them wants to go rescue this body that's already dead, just to get the body. And it's kind of just like these moments. We see a lot of these moments, like the boat, like you've seen Wind Across the Everglades, right?
Yeah.
There's some shots in this that reminds me of that.
I can see that. Yeah.
Of, like, just these boats quietly going across the water, but still tense at the same time.
Yes.
But then we learn how, like, these Americans are waiting for backup that's apparently never coming. One of them says, "Oh, we'll all die one way or another, but that's a small matter for headquarters." But we see, like, we see them all split up on, like, 3 different boats. I forget. I think that this is, like, after they bury that body they find. They say they're going to. I forget what they say. They say they're going somewhere else. Anyway, we see 3 of them split up on 3 boats. And these are some of my favorite shots in the movie too. These, like, wide shots of the silhouetted boats going across the water. Honestly, kind of Night of the Hunter-ish a little bit.
I can see that. Yeah.
At least, like, these dark silhouettes with the silence of the boats going across. But then they go in this partisan. They see this Italian family at a house, and the partisan goes and asks if the Americans can stay, and they agree. The American kind of helps out, and he gives, like, some ointment spray for, like, mosquitoes and stuff. Honestly, the second we see the Americans kind of helping out the Italians, we should know, like, something's about mad.
Oh, they did.
yeah, exactly. But honestly, there's this great shot of the camera pans from the water to the shore. Just, like, there's, honestly, and, like, the wind is, like, slowly playing, and we hear the water a little bit. There's, like, a shot of it's, like, right before they light off the flares. It's like we see this camera slowly pan from the water to the shore. Then it cuts to just the stars. It's almost like that Pascal shot we're going to talk about later on, where it shows to him almost looking through the telescope, and it just cuts just to the stars itself.
Is that Cartesius?
Or is it Cartesius?
Because I think the shot of the stars is Cartesius.
Oh, it is. Damn.
Okay. Is he gonna do it though? Is he gonna do it?
I haven't decided if I'm doing that one yet. Anyway, damn, I thought it was Cartesius. I thought it was Pascal.
Pascal might have something, but I simply remember there's the star shot.
Okay. Yeah,
I know Cartesius has a shot of the stars, and I'm pretty sure it's that. Yeah.
But then anyway, it cuts to the stars, and it cuts back to the shore again. We see, like, them, like, starting to light these flares, and this is, like, apparently this is where Rossellini said, like, this is, or Gallagher says about Rossellini, this is most off the cuff filmmaking, because, like, these shots are so underexposed. You know, it's, like, just barely any light you can see. And most of it's, like, super dark. And apparently, the cinematographer's, like, super nervous. He's like, "Oh, we're not going to get the proper lighting," you know, But Rossellini said this is what he wanted.
Well, buddy, I don't care.
Yeah, that's what I want. I want these dark. But, like, people couldn't tell if he was just being lazy, you know, trying to rush through the thing and stuff. But this is the kind of effect. It works so well with this, like, really moody darkness, you know, like, you can barely see anything. And then, like, after it cuts to these, we see kind of, like, the after. I honestly don't know. Like, we see, like, I don't know how. I forget even how it cuts to this. Like, when we see the kids.
We get the little boy walking.
Yeah. We see more just aftermath
of, like, the family getting killed, basically.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. We don't even see really the family get killed that much.
No, it's kind of.
That's why it's all of a sudden we just come back to this house and it's just this little boy
like walking through the wreckage
and the dog. Yeah, it's a very. This is also like a very melodramatic moment. You know, it's like the sunrise. We barely see the sunrise. I think in the background, and we see this kid just walking. No, yeah, but then they go and they see like a plane that's crashed, and they go and they find out it's like an English soldier, and they help rescue him. But then. That's what I'm saying. Like, there's no really connection. Like, they rescue the soldier, and then they decide to keep moving in these 3 boats. We see the boats keep moving after they've already gotten this one family killed and stuff. But they do help the soldier. But then they run into more partisans who tell them like the Germans are coming all of a sudden. Yeah. That's when this battle starts.
They get a firefight.
Yeah. They get a firefight, and then this is This is like honestly one of Rossellini's most dramatic scenes in any of his movies. Something like this battle.
Like the hands crazy.
Yeah.
Well, the one guy's shooting himself too.
Yeah.
Instead of being taken prisoner.
Yeah. No, that's true. I forgot about that. Yeah, and then we see one shoot himself. Another one takes a cyanide pill too, I think.
Yeah.
But then the rest of them get taken as POWs. They get taken to this German house, or not German house, but German occupied house anyway. And this German is like basically telling him how, I think Munji mentioned how they're basically not going to give up to the very end.
He's like, we're not going to give up until we build like this lasting civilization that's going to last for
they're trying to destroy years. They're trying to destroy all civilization to build a new one that'll last. And it just makes it so depressing because like knowing they're going to lose, but yeah, how we know this movie's about to end, it just makes it all the worse. Yeah. We see these soldiers like are just like outside, like basically they kind of already know their fate. Yeah. It's really sad. One of them says, he pissed on me like a whore talking about the German soldier, like as they're just laying on the ground. One of them says, like, my family won't even know what happened to me. Yeah. But then it cuts to, like, the next morning as they're, like, just on the water. Do you remember what movie this reminds me of?
Of, like, they're on the water.
Well, they're just getting pushed into the water.
Pushed into the water.
Bull in the head. I'm just kidding. It's not bull in the head, but it feels similar. I was
going to say Silence.
Oh, okay. I can get that. Yeah.
Yeah.
It definitely
does. Think he
it
definitely
does
feel
like
too,
Silence.
honestly.
It definitely does feel like that moment.
Just the way we're watching these bodies almost just like undramatically fall. Like we don't even actually see them directly fall in the water. We only hear it, I think.
We just see the splash.
The splash.
Yeah.
And just, that's how this movie ends.
He stays on the water too, and then like he's like narrating like that was the end of the events or whatever.
Yeah, it's a real stinger. It's a real stinger, man.
Do you remember what movie this? I've already mentioned this movie about the ending, but we've talked about a movie on this.
Mushet?
Yes. The ending on the water too, with the splash and just on the water. Because initially you wouldn't see this as a positive ending, but in a way, like Rossellini sees death as a positive, you know, like away from this kind of world, in a way. But that's why it's hard. Like, I guess it's hard. It's the hardest to make about this episode.
Like it being positive?
Yeah.
Okay,
I don't think it's positive. I don't think this one's really positive at all.
Not honestly. About what happens, but more about like he's saying like the feeling you're supposed to get out of it. You know, maybe hope. Here, let me read to kind of close off this movie. Let me read how Tad Gallagher defines why this movie is good. Quote: "Moods and attitudes were Rossellini's subject and people, but not things or events. He does not so much show reality as indicate a frame of feeling within which shame and sin attach to the great slow current of time. The world felt no need to know what the war had been about. At least the victorious nations didn't, but Italians did, and no such facile answers as victory over tyranny could correspond to the roles Italians had played. They needed to feel who they were, and Rossellini gives them themselves. For what Rome Open City struggled to do, Paisan achieved." I honestly think maybe it's like, I guess maybe positive is the wrong word, but like this kind of feeling, I guess, what he's saying of how Italians felt about this situation at the time. You know, like even at the end of this war, they're still surrounded by both Nazis and Americans. You know, both sides are like, it's a lose-lose situation. Yeah. And so you could see, like, honestly, the way we describe Mushet as like death is an escape, and maybe don't take it too literally, you know, because it is a film after all. Like the same way you could say about this in a way. Like death is escape from either choices that are almost presented in this movie, you know. But that's it for Paisan. We'll come back and do Germany Year Zero. And we're back to talk about Germany Year Zero. We'll just start with your guys' thoughts again. Actually, I should say the year. 1948. Paisan was 1946. What do you guys think about Germany Year Zero? Luke, we'll start with you.
I really like it. Not as much as Paisan. But I generally like I would say just the subject matter. I would say because I just find it interesting. Because I feel like there's not a lot of films about this kind of era in Germany. Kind of like I guess it's about like what you do after this. I guess you could say like very like idealistic regime just kind of crumbles. Like what is left? I would say like what's left in this like in terms of. Anything material, but also kind of idealistic, and kind of like the people trapped in it as well. Because all these people know are like the Nazi like fascist kind of propaganda and ideals. So like, how do you even like go forward like through life with this in mind? And I think this movie's kind of like shows it in a very interesting way. I would say. Yeah, I also like the title as well. I think the title reflects that too. Germany Year Zero. Like this isn't even year one. This is year zero. Like
yeah, like literally the beginning.
Yeah.
Apparently, like during the filming and stuff, he'd taken this title with permission from the author Edgar Morin, who was like a film critic and philosopher who had written a book called Germany's Year Zero. Okay. But like the producer, he didn't tell anyone on the set basically where he got the title.
Oh yeah.
He didn't want to anyway.
Yeah.
Which is kind of funny.
He's mysterious like that.
Yeah, he's trying to be anyway. No, but it is a good title. Like it kind of like, especially after you've seen the movie, it really makes sense. This idea of like really, there's like, yeah, there's not. It doesn't even like it. It's fitting. Like there's not even one. There's like nothing here.
No,
Like everybody looks for hope in the movie is like destroyed.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't know, Blake. What about you?
No, I loved it honestly. I like it more than Paisan personally. For a lot of the reasons that Luke said, the subject matter is very interesting. I like that it's an Italian director doing it because, like I already kind of mentioned, the Italians and Germans had a very interesting relationship during the war in general, and it'd be interesting to see a German director's take on this. But obviously, I don't think there were many on the Nazi side, obviously, or like in Germany at the time, because most of the artists had fled to the States or something like that. But having an Italian director do it he's more detached from these characters than a German director would be, in my opinion. Yes. Like we aren't supposed to feel that bad, I would say, for these people. Like we can feel their plight. Like I feel terrible about what's happening, but it's more just looking at kind of what Luke said. Like it's more just asking the question, what is Germany now? Like yes. Not even like it is year zero, obviously, yes. But like it's World War II was interesting in a lot of ways because wars before it was wars like where the invaders would colonize obviously the area they invaded and stuff like that. In World War II, it's like we came, we conquered, and then we kind of left. Yes. I mean, we had like military police there and stuff. Like we obviously had people there and stuff like that, but. I mean, for a lot of it, it feels like we just left them to fend for themselves. Yes, for a lot, like, because that was the whole thing about World War I too. That's like what led to World War II was we did the exact same thing there. So, but I don't know. It's a very interesting movie. I liked it a lot. So, and there's very interesting uses of like the ideology that Luke's kind of talking about and played in very interesting ways, like the Adolf Hitler like records and stuff like that, because. I don't know. I just love those shots. It's kind of what you were getting at, I feel like, with the poetic storytelling, because it's just like he's playing these records of Hitler's speeches over destroyed Berlin.
They're going to be victorious no matter what. After their defeat already, right? And the fact that is it American soldiers that are trying to buy these records?
I think it is.
I'm pretty sure it is.
I'm pretty sure it is American. It's Allied forces at the very least. For sure.
Or Allied forces. Yeah, which is.
It's almost like they don't even realize they're like already like a museum in a way.
Honestly, well, they do. Remember, some of the soldiers do because they're like taking pictures. Like this is where.
The people like the German people that are still like holding on hope with these Hitler images, but the soldiers are treating them almost like they're museum pieces or like replicas, basically, or relics, I should say.
So to kind of get into the movie, like maybe some kind of things I wanted to mention about it. First, this is a quote from Rossellini, kind of like, so he's making, obviously the first two movies of this war trilogy are in Italy, so it's interesting already that he decided to make a movie about Germany. Like, doesn't even have the right to do that in the first, I mean, right is a weird word, but like, why Germany? But, so quote, this is what he says about what he saw when he got to Berlin, basically. So quote, during the shooting in the streets of Berlin, I was struck by the indifference of the people. In New York, in London, in Paris, or Rome, a motion picture camera and a filming crew are an irresistible magnet for the citizenry. The people of Berlin, it seemed to me, were interested only in one thing, to eat and to survive. This, I believe, is the fruit of a defeat unparalleled in history, which has annihilated the conscience of an entire people. And I think like that goes to this whole point of the year zero, of like he says, a consciousness of an entire people almost like annihilated, right? I think, and I'm going to mention next, like why Rossellini's quote of why he chose a child, because that's also really important. Because it's like, let me just read his quote. He says, "quote I made a child the protagonist in Germany Year Zero to accentuate the contrast between the mentality of a generation born and brought up in a certain political climate and that of the older generation as represented by Edmund's father. 12-year-old Edmund is the prototype of the German child who has survived the catastrophe of his native land. Whether he excites pity or horror, I do not know, nor do I wish to know. I wanted to reproduce the truth under the impulse of a strong artistic emotion." Basically, this idea of like, what is this? At least in my opinion, that's how I see it. Is like, when he chooses a kid, it's like, what is this kid who, in a way, kids are year zero in a way. You know, like they're supposed to have nothing. How is he supposed to confront this world that's in front of him? You know, and at the time, this is like the new, like you said, a Germany that's almost left on its own. You know, like because we see like still there's lots of Nazi ideology all over the place. Like a lot of his help is from this teacher. That's obviously a clear Nazi. You know, and we see like how much influence he has on this kid because like that's still where he can only go to. Which is like the irony of the movie in a way, you know. Like
we'll have to get to that teacher because I don't know what's happening with that. It feels so pedophilic.
Oh,
what's happening with that? Yes. Like, oh my god,
the way he keeps rubbing on their arms and stuff. Yeah,
so creepy.
It is, dude. No, just from like some of these motion, like you get so much out of it, even though it's like still mysterious in a way, like what's actually going on, what they're all doing. You know, we only see a small part. It seems like. But then this is another part that's interesting because this is the thing that I think like that makes this movie different from something like even though I haven't seen it, but like Spielberg's war movie where they're fighting the Nazis.
Saving Private Ryan.
Yeah, Saving Private Ryan. Where like
that movie sucks, by the way.
I haven't seen it, so I can't say.
It's
but
bad.
Where the Nazis are purely evil, obviously. Where there's like movies where obviously the Nazis are evil. That's what I'm saying. But it's like how this evil kind of arises is a different point. And what Ty Gallagher says is, thousands of movies show us how repellent Nazism was. Has anyone other than Rossellini dared to show how it could attract to disaster, quote, human beings like us? And that was kind of Rossellini's, this is another thing he says is, basically, the Germans, he says, are human beings like us, so what led them to an evil like this great as Nazism? You know, like what kind of factors led to them? And that's why he says he decided to, quote, he says, "This is why I decided to tell the story of a child, of an innocent whom the distortions of a utopian education inspired to perpetuate a crime, thinking he is accomplishing a heroic act. But the little flame of morality is not extinguished in him. He kills himself to escape this uneasiness, this contradiction." It's almost like we see like just like the twisted morality of the still society in there, like lead this kid to do something that he thinks is good, but that's clearly bad, you know, which is obviously what a lot of Nazis were doing. I don't know, it's really interesting, like using this kind of kid as a way to show like how society creates people like this, you know, just through one kid. Because like that's why you said like it's more detached, you know. We're not supposed to feel like clear sympathy for the kid, you know, necessarily, even though we kind of see why, we kind of understand some of his choices. To me, they're almost funny in a certain way. Like, okay, like, not the movie itself, but the way, like, he kind of stumbles on these answers is, like, there's a point where the father's, like, we see first the brother, the older brother, who's, like, hiding. I think he's, like, he's hiding or something.
It's heavily implied he was formerly SS.
Yes,
so.
yes. and like he doesn't want to be like basically
Even
even though they're being told that they're not going to do anything to soldiers.
They're being
like that.
told they're not going to do anything to soldiers, but the brother is like they don't do things to soldiers, but they don't know what regiment I was in, basically, and that's why you're like, okay, so he was in probably an SS unit, like a way more intense.
Yeah, what's the SS
unit? They were just actually like basically murderers.
They were like
they were the worst of the German ground units in terms of just like they would just kill anyone basically.
But like his like damn, I forgot what I was gonna say.
Something with the brother.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. When there's a part in the movie because there's two really like to me they're funny if you take like why Edmund does what he does. He thinks is positive because in a way he's almost doing exactly what his role models are saying. Like his brother at one point says, "I used to be a soldier, but now only if I had the courage I would jump out of the window." And think about how the movie ends.
Yeah.
He jumps out the window. And there's a different scene where the father's like, "Oh, I'm just such a burden on my family. If
I wish
only I would die.
Why can't God just kill me?
If I just died, it would be better for everyone." Yeah. And so Edmund, that's what he does. Literally, exactly. That's what he does. He just kills his father to help the family. But he like takes it seriously. Like in a way, you can see that it's funny, but it's like, I don't know. It's like ironic. I guess it's like a.
It's like I was just granting your wish.
Yes, exactly. And so then like, that's why Rossellini says like. When he realizes that contradiction that he just committed, it's almost like the best thing you can do is death. You know, that's how he kind of escapes the contradiction he just committed. That's why like you can't take the movie too literally, especially the ending. Like it is kind of really melodramatic. You know, like this kid like kind of dying, almost as like realizing what this world is. You know, and then like the sister kind of coming like holding him and stuff. But it also is like apparently like this was like. Rossellini, like he literally, this is when Tad Gallagher says like he started buying into his own myth of like using no scripts and everything. So, like he was just literally just filming on just filming on the spot, like certain stories and stuff.
Just making stuff up.
Yeah. Especially the ending really feels like that, you know, just like him just walking around all over the place a little bit. But yeah, I think we can go ahead and start into the movie. He dedicates the movie to his son Romano, which is kind of important because
I was wondering. I was going to ask about that.
Yeah, his son had just died recently.
So Euro 51 is a lot more, I guess.
Yeah, that kind of with this.
So that's probably like a personal, like he's your personal thing.
And
makes sense.
Tad Gallagher says, I might have to get the exact quote last week, but he does say something like, after this, his son had died, all of Rossellini's movies in some way will deal with like the question of death. And kind of just confronting death in a way, you know? And this one definitely does. Like, apparently he was even trying to find a kid that looked like his son to play the kid in this, you know? Yeah, because he definitely had his child on the mind in terms of, like, what world his child is even entering, you know?
Yeah.
Because, like, you could say Germany is... Obviously, Germany, Year Zero is, like, the worst version of, like, aftermath of World War II. But you could also say that's the whole world after World War II, you know, like the whole world is the ones fighting each other, you know. So it kind of just starts with the movie starts the same way it ends, you know, just this kid like with wandering around, nowhere to go. But we see him like working, and then he gets caught. They say he's like too old. They kind of
he's too young.
Notice he's too young.
Yeah.
He doesn't have his worker's card. He like tries to say he's 15. It's like so obvious.
So obvious he's not. Yeah, he's like the one guy's like, if this kid's over 13, like I can't remember what he said, but he's like, I'll do something.
So I was like, I recognize my son's in his class or something. Then he goes and like they find a dead. There's like a huge crowd around a dead horse.
Someone tries to like cut him.
Yeah, they're starting to cut him up, and like he wants some of the meat. And they say no, you can't have any, and they push him away. Then he like just finds some. There's like a coal cart that's going by, and it drops some coal, and he goes and steals it.
Yeah.
Just kind of just like.
I like how the cop is like, "Hey, don't touch that coal, kid."
Yeah, and then all the other kids.
Oh, he's like, "I'll come and get you for that."
I'll find you.
All the other kids just like go and like also.
Yeah, they also. But then there's just some good shots of like. There's like a shot I noticed he does it multiple times where like the camera will like as he's walking, the camera kind of goes really close to him. And then it'll just like slowly go back as he keeps walking.
Yeah.
Kind of just like almost like going in and out, you know.
Yeah.
But then he enters like this kind of house where apparently 5 different. It's an apartment, I think, where 5 different families are living.
Yeah.
Like 2. I don't know how many rooms. I actually don't know how many rooms. I don't know if they each have a room.
I think he said 5.
They have 5 rooms too.
I think so.
Either way, I know there's 5 families.
Yeah,
I don't know how many
there's
rooms
a
are
head
actually in this
tenant.
place, though. Yeah.
There's a head tenant and everything.
Yeah.
So. Which is insane.
We're basically meeting all this kind of like this kind of dynamic of there's like way too many people in this place, and like none of them actually really like each other either. But like one of them says, is like we meet this main guy too, the one that's
the
like
head tenant. Yeah.
The one that's gonna give him the what is
the scale?
The scale to sell. Yeah. We meet his own family. It's like if you're watching, it's kind of it's honestly hard the first time to understand like the dynamics.
I thought it was
what
his
all these
family
families
at first.
like, exactly. Yeah.
I thought it was the little kid's family at first.
You think all of
this
them
guy.
is initially, but then you kind of meet his own family where he has like the older sister, that older brother that I've already talked about, then his father too, who's going to be like represent the older generation of Germany, but basically they get it kind of makes the ending sad because we see this beginning scene of Edmund actually he's like the most hopeful one of this whole family. He's like kind of telling them to still be hopeful and stuff while they're all like just
he's the one
they've all given up already in a way.
Well, they're surviving on 3 food stamps because the brother doesn't want to he doesn't want to turn himself in basically.
He doesn't want to go public basically to see what
and they can't obviously live on 3 food stamps for 4 people. And so they're wanting the brother to turn himself in. The little kid's like, no, I don't want that.
No, yeah.
It's like I'll find a job or something. Yeah. It's very sweet, but yeah, it's also just like you're watching it, you're like, damn, this kid's the strongest out of all 4 of them, and he's 13.
No, exactly. I think that's
at max 13. He's probably younger, but
yes. I do think Rossellini is saying like there's something to that, like because he doesn't have this weight of like what's happened, he's almost in a way able to be the strongest, by like not having that kind of weight of the past that some of the others have experienced, but like we kind of get some more stuff. Like it's kind of implied that his sister is a prostitute. Basically, she's been going out at nights to make money because this guy doesn't. He just stays. It's not a coincidence. I think both the men are the ones that just stay at home.
Yeah.
And, like talk. That's all we see them do. Both of them. But then we get the Edmund gets the scale from the guy to go sell. He says to come back for 300.
300 marks.
And there's no way he's going to come back with this, honestly. It cuts to her, his sister at this club, like talking to an American guy. I think he's American anyway. And then it shows it's honestly a weird cut. It's like this dark club where she's talking to this guy. And then all of a sudden it cuts to like a bright daylight scene of all these women standing in line for bread, and like the guy saying like I think they've like raised the price or something, and they're like some people in line are like complaining about how young people don't want to work anymore and stuff because like the black market is like they're saying something about the black market like a lot, and then we see like the sisters say something about they have this long conversation and she has something about how she doesn't have courage anymore. So I think that's a theme of like this whole family. We see like at each moment all of them say like they have no more courage to do anything.
Yeah.
And that's like I think that's pretty significant for Edmund's ending, and that's why he keeps having to go search outside the house too. But then he goes. This is what I was saying. Like it's like a similar scene to the Paisan scene where he goes to sell the scale and this old guy's like, I'll give you a fair price. And all he gives him is like a can of meat or something. 2 cans of meat.
Well, he gives him one, and then he's like, "Hey, only this for the scale." And he's like, "Oh, okay. Here's another one."
And then just drives off. And he's like, "What is this kid gonna do?"
I mean, yeah. It's what you said earlier. It's just like
he's supposed to be an adult.
Against an adult.
He's being told to act as an adult,
right?
And everything. But like he can't be treated the same way.
Yeah, and this one is like so fucked up because it's like this adult treats him like this, just gives him the 2 cans of meat, then he goes back home eventually, gives the man what he got for it after disappointing his own family because they thought the meat was for them.
Yes.
And then he's like, no, it's actually for this guy.
Yes.
Brings it to that guy, just for that guy to go like, okay, where's the money you're hiding? Because he's like, this isn't all you got for that scale.
No.
It's fucking insane.
But
messed up situation.
But it's almost like even worse because like even before he goes back with that can to meat, do you remember who he runs into next?
Yeah, the doctor or whatever, or the teacher. Yeah,
his former teacher anyway.
Is this on the playground too? Because that, or not the playground, but those statues.
Yes,
like
that's,
so that's a great location.
Yeah, no, yeah.
I said playground because all the kids are playing on it.
No, it's like because you hear them in the background, and it's like you just notice right away this guy's creepy. Just by the way, he's like rubbing his hands all over his shoulders
like
and
his
stuff.
neck.
Yeah, and his neck.
This is like real Night of the Hunter shit too, honestly.
No, yeah.
I don't know.
No, just some of these some of those shots make you like you're like I don't even want to think worse about what this guy's doing.
I don't want to know what's going on in this man's head. That's what makes me think. So.
But anyway, we this teacher says he can kind of help him out because Edmund says he's desperate. Like, but they start walking around together. They like see another former Nazi guy. Another guy they run into says, "Before we were still men, Nazi socialists. Now we're just Nazis." It kind of goes what you were saying, like about they're kind of just left. You know, these people were still there. You know, Nazis still existed even after the war. But then they go there's they have a conversation how apparently like Edmund's father did try to get him out of the Nazi youth, but the teacher like stopped it and almost had him like arrested, but because he liked Edmund so much he decided not to do anything about it.
Yeah.
Kind of showing even the father is like not all the way.
The father the father has a few quotes.
He has some
that
he has
too.
some ideals at least, you know.
It's ideals that I don't know what to think about, honestly, because it's honestly just a hot wind blown by an old man at the end of the day. Because he's like, oh, we saw, our generation saw what was coming, we should have done more to stop it. It's like, okay, thanks for saying that now.
No,
it's already happened, so...
no.
Like, you're just
You're talking about the scene
it's
right before he dies?
Basically.
Yes,
I mean, it's kind of like
speech.
the head tenant basically says at one point in the movie to the kid also, like, I wish that your father would just die to save us from all of his belly aching and shit. And that's kind of what I feel at the end, towards the end of this also, because it's like he really is just moaning and belly aching the entire time.
That's what I'm saying about the brother is doing too.
Yeah.
That's kind of what he sees. That's what Edmund sees with all this family in a way.
Yeah.
That's why this is who he sees when he comes out of the house, you know, is this teacher. Like, it's so creepy. Like, they go into this room in this like weird house that they're in.
It's like a dilapidated medical facility, maybe?
I don't know what this place is. Because there's like just two people
creepy.
sitting in the middle of it that they go and talk to. Then they go upstairs.
There's a doctor of some kind.
First Edmund's sitting in this guy's lab. He's like rubbing his nose on his nose and stuff, and just like rubbing his face as they're talking. He's like asking him if they teach him about democracy now and stuff. But that's when the doctor comes and stuff, and also starts grabbing Edmund. It's like we don't even know why this doctor. Why is there a doctor here?
Yeah, I was like, what is this doctor? What is he?
That's what I'm saying. Like, there's a lot of implied stuff that we don't.
Yeah,
really
it's just
learn. Because apparently he hires Edmund to sell this record, this Hitler speech, to these soldiers.
Because it feels like they're Nazi. They're like still Nazis trying to keep the regime going. Basically, is what these guys feel like, kind of.
Yeah, I can see that. Or at least the idea's going.
The ideal's going, at least, yeah. Like this ideology alive.
Yeah.
They want to keep it alive or some shit.
That's why it's almost like a relief. Like, oh, that's all he's doing is like selling records.
Yeah.
Because like so far we don't have no idea why this teacher's so interested in him.
We'll see, and I still don't know if that's all. Like,
well, he kind of just gives up on this kid after that. He's like, come back to me anytime you need me.
No, yeah. But we also get like the scene later with the doctor whenever like he brings a different kid and the doctor asks like, oh, is this another one of your students? He's like, no, this is just a kid I found on the street. And you're like, what's the difference?
Yeah,
what's gonna happen to this kid?
Yeah, no, that's true.
Is he gonna have a different job, or is he like a sex slave for these guys? I don't know. The way they grope all these people, I'm just like, I don't know, man. I don't know what's going on in this fucking place. Like,
no, it is very weird what's going on here.
It's also October though, so I have horror on the mind, but.
I mean, this is definitely a horror movie in a way.
It is a horror movie.
Like this, he's seen the horrors of this year zero of Germany, basically, and basically the people that it's left behind in a way. It's kind of like I read that Rossellini quote at the beginning. Like these people have kind of given up, like only care about eating and surviving. You know,
it's why it's like kind of an occupation movie too, for sure. Like the Americans are here occupying, but they're not doing shit really to actually help the situation.
For people say Blaise Pascal is also kind of a horror movie in a way.
Yeah, no, we'll talk about that too when we bring that up. It's like they're horror movies in the way like Rossellini's showing a horror of a world, and how does an individual confront it? You know,
Yes.
Pascal's also by that way, like the horrors of that century,
Yes.
especially with a lot of like the very backward stuff that was going on,
Yeah.
versus like modern science that was just being brought up out. But yeah, to go back to Germany Year Zero, he comes home. He basically he sells the scale for 200. The teacher gives him 10, and that's like a big 10 marks, I think they say, and that's like a big deal for him. And the teacher has to come see him again, and then lets him go. You're like, okay, that's a. Then Edmund follows like this older kid and a girl. I forget how he meets them exactly.
I think
they're also there.
Yeah, I think he's introduced by this.
Yeah, they're introduced
doctor, by this teacher.
Yeah, during the record sale or something.
Because he's telling him like, teach him how to do it right
Yes,
or something. Basically.
yes. But anyway, then he's like, okay, this is another role model for him potentially, and he's like, okay, this guy's job is to sell soap, but we learn quickly he doesn't even sell soap. He just like robs people by getting him to have the money to take the money out for the soap. And then Edmund also, he's like, okay, maybe I'll do that. And he's like, okay, can I buy the soap from this guy? And then the guy also robs Edmund of the 10 that he just got. He's like, I think the box is empty. Yeah, the box is empty. But then that kid leaves him with just the girl, and there's like they just have like a night alone, I think.
It's implied, yeah.
Yeah, it's implied anyway. And then Edmund comes home the next morning. They're all like basically, they have like no sympathy for him of like where was this kid all alone all night. They're just mad at him for like being gone all night. The father even says you should be ashamed, so depraved and corrupted at your age. Yes. And I think that like kind of goes to that overall point. Like I also said that Rossellini quote about the father representing the older generation and like how they view the younger generations, like without taking any responsibility of like who created it at all.
It's like, why do I have to do this, father?
Yeah, exactly. While this guy's still at home the whole time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he's showing him like he's basically trying to make up for it by showing him the potatoes he got from the kid the night before, and then also the meat, like I already mentioned.
And they're just like, where did you get this from?
Yeah,
exactly.
Because the father's just like, I'm not gonna eat like these are ill-gotten goods. Basically, I'm not gonna eat them. So
these kind of like ideals while doing nothing. But then he goes and takes the meat to the other guy, Mr. I don't know how he says. Rademacher or something like that.
Rademacher.
Yeah, it's like something like that.
It's so sad because I love because he's with like this handyman guy basically, and it's the two different classes, although they're all poor because they're all living in like this Germany Year Zero. So like this head tenant is like so up his own ass that he's like he basically accuses this kid of stealing money because he only brings him back 2 cans of meat. And then the handyman's basically like, 2 cans of meat for the scale's actually pretty good. Like, and then he's like, oh, okay, here, then you have it. And then he's like, oh, thank you. He's like, take it to my wife. He's like, oh, okay. I was like, damn. Like, this fucking asshole. Yeah, no. This head ten is just like...
Like, he was going to complain no matter what. He just doesn't like this guy's family, kid's family, too.
No, he literally calls them leeches and shit.
Yeah, no. This is the part where he says, like, he just wants his father to die because he'd be more helpful. He'd finally have some peace. No, honestly, with this guy's father's ranting, like, you kind of agree with him.
Exactly, that's what, yeah.
And especially when the father's also saying the same thing, too. Yeah. But then there's a great moment where Edmund talks to the brother because he also has these American cigarettes that he got.
Yeah.
And it's honestly one of my favorite shots in the movie of kind of showing Edmund as like the bigger person in this whole film. He's actually at the higher angle. And it's like a low angle shot from the brother's perspective of like him being handed the American cigarettes. Like it should be the other way around, the older brother handing the younger one cigarettes. Yeah. So it's like it's kind of funny that it's the other way. But the brother, of course, is still getting mad at him. Of like, he's like, you should be ashamed. And the kid's like, everyone else is doing it. And he's like, that's no excuse. And if you're right that he was an SS soldier, like
exactly
from this guy, just like amazing. It's like the most hypocritical thing.
Or just from any Nazi.
Honestly,
from any Nazi soldier.
Honestly, that's the point of this movie, right? From any of these people, at least from his family.
Like, they can't blame this kid for doing what he's doing whenever...
Like, especially because the two guys who they get mad at is the sister for prostituting herself and the kid for doing what he's doing. But they're the ones only doing anything,
They're the ones trying to keep this family alive.
Exactly. Yeah. But then, like, this is I mentioned this quote earlier where the soldier, where he's like, Edmund still has some hope in him because he's like, you shouldn't lose courage now, brother. And he's like, no, I mustn't. A soldier can lose everything but his courage. but I'm not a soldier anymore. Now I'm a nobody. One more mouth to feed. I swear I'd like to jump out the window. And like literally that quote, like that's why it's like almost a comedy to me in terms of like how like exact it is, like
how on the nose it is.
Like how on the nose it is. Like where both these guys, what they say is like what Edmund actually does at the end of the movie. You know, it's almost too exact. But yeah, then but that's like I think it's like almost right after that the father starts having a heart attack. It's like literally doing the same thing. Mm-hmm. This is another thing where I was saying it's like not realistic in a way because like literally these things happen. It's almost like they happen like it's very theatrical how they happen like back to back on purpose. You know,
you just jump straight to it.
Yes, yeah. But yeah, like he has a heart attack. But it's almost like it's kind of funny in a way too because this is like almost seen as like a good thing.
It is a good thing for the father.
Because first, it's good for everyone.
It is good.
It's almost like foreshadowing of the father dying and being a good thing as well. Because it's like, first of all, he's gone from the family. That's one less mouth. But then we learn like the hospital is like where they're getting the best meals too. It's almost like Chaplin-esque of like when he goes to prison, he's like it's like a better time for him.
Yeah,
it's like almost like that for this guy.
Because whenever this guy comes back is whenever I'm like, okay, this guy, I agree with the head to head now. Like this guy gotta go. Like
no. It's like it's almost like he's like rubbing it in where he's like he's at the hospital after he's ate and it's like just that long story he's describing all of the meals he's had. He's like, yeah, we get 3 hearty meals a day, you know. And he's like describing
meat
everything.
And vegetables.
Yeah.
They even have this much milk. I'm just like,
yeah.
damn, just rub it into your daughter's face even more.
But she's like at least happy for him
and
stuff. No, and she's happy for him. But then it cuts to back to the house with the other people still there, and they're getting in trouble for like using too much electricity or something.
Well, because we saw something earlier where the head ten had like wired to get more electricity.
Yeah.
Like he had done. I think that's what the handyman was doing.
Okay.
Actually,
Honestly, I didn't even notice that. Damn.
Because they had a quick thing of like, I think his wife saying, "What if they find out it's us?" And he's like, "There's 5 people living here. How would they find out? They won't know who to blame." So yeah, their electricity got turned off because of that. But
no, I think you're right. I didn't even notice that. But then we see Edmund go back to the same teacher to look for help for basically because they just lost. I guess do they lose the
stamps? I think.
I
think they lose the rations.
They lose the rations from that
because
guy.
Because he's at the hospital.
Damn, that's brutal. Fuck. So this guy's like that makes it even worse if this guy just like rubbing it in about the hospital food while like losing his food for the rest of the family.
Yeah.
Like I wonder if he would be allowed to save any of it for the rest of his family, but he probably didn't.
No
think
such
of
thing.
He didn't think of that. He didn't think of that. But anyway, that's why he's come back to this teacher because he's even more desperate now. And this is another thing. I've said basically every guy in his life is given this idea of like where Edmund gets the ideas for the end of this movie. Because this guy is also like basically spouting pure Nazi ideology to him about like ideas about death and stuff. Where he's like, I have no. He's like he doesn't know what he could do, and he's like the guy says, I have no idea, my boy. You have to accept things as they come. He's old and weak. You've tried everything. You can't fight destiny. And he says, what if he dies? Then he dies. We all have to die sooner or later. You can't all starve just to leave him alone. And then later on, he says something similar where he says, everything isn't about you and your selfishness. Afraid that daddy will die. Look at nature. The weak are destroyed so that the strong survive. One must have the courage to let the weak die. You have to be clear about that, my boy. It's all about saving ourselves. So chin up, okay? And like the way he's so confident about everything he's saying right now, it just makes it funnier at the end later when like
he's like, no, I didn't tell you to do that.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, that's why like there's some comedic moments in this in terms of like the contrast of like the first like the way he's saying it and later on when he actually sees someone actually did something, you know. It's just like what he does, just like so dark, obviously. But then basically that's like the good advice Edmund gets. And the musical I have in my notes like the music's a little even more upbeat as he like leaves this place, and it kind of shows him walking around after thinking about it for a little bit, and then that's when he comes to the hospital, and it's like in a way he's almost gonna get another confirmation of what he's gonna do later from this father, almost like in a different way saying the same thing as what what the Nazi teacher just said, because like this is what the teachers where the dad says I've often thought I ought to end my life, but I lack the courage. My existence is nothing but agony. I know it full well, for me and for all of you. This, like basically, he's like you can't almost blame Edmund for what he does at the end, you know, because it's like he's literally saying like my life is agony, kill me, please. I just need someone else to do it. I don't have the courage. So, Edmund's the one with courage in this movie, as we've talked about. But yeah. But then the next thing is the father coming back home. And he literally says, quote, "My God, why didn't I just stay in the hospital? Now I have to lie around here and be a burden to you again. The misery of watching and not being able to help, condemned to live. Lord, why don't you just let me die? It would be a relief for me and for all of you." And it's like as this kid, like, you're trying to see it from this Edmund's perspective, because knowing what he's about to do, it's like, you kind of understand, like, literally, this father's, like, saying multiple times. So you can see from a child's innocent perspective, it's like, maybe this is what I should do,
Yeah.
Like how helpless he is.
Especially what he just learned from the previous scene from the teacher, who's like, death is, maybe that's what your father should do. He's the weak, and the weak should die. The strongest are the ones to survive. So, like, that's how he's taking it, But then, like, this is where, like, Rossellini is kind of showing, like, he's still, like, to me, a master filmmaker, because, like, it's kind of comedic, but also, like, really sad how the camera's, like, the way it's filmed, of this father just going on this rant about old Germany and stuff, and, like, his own kind of ideals. At the same time, we're watching the kid in the background just, like, slowly, like, basically commit an action. Like, this is the action of the movie. Yeah. Where, like, what no one else is willing to do, in a way. He's willing to do it. But it's like, he's almost in the shadows, too, if I remember, like, in the background. But he's, like, actually poisoning the coffee and stuff. And it's like and then he finally gives it to the father. The father's like, "Oh, it tastes odd." And then he tries to give it to the brother, and then
he's like, "No, I made this."
He's like, "Oh,
for
no,
you."
no, I made it, like, this is almost like a silent film,
yeah,
or something like this would happen. He's like, "No, I made it specifically for you." But then the father's just like, "Oh, okay," and then he's like, "I can be proud to have children like you. Misfortune has befallen us, but it has brought my children back to me." Yeah, it's like, as I'm saying, it almost feels like theatrical, like the son killing the father, But then, like, right after that, the soldiers arrive to take the brother away. Like, literally right after that.
Yeah. Yeah, the father hasn't even died yet, because the brother doesn't know.
Yeah, the brother only finds out after. It's like, this is literally all back to back. Where it's like not realistic. It's like very, it's like a story, back to back of. The father drinks the poison. The brother goes away, gets taken away. We don't know what's going to happen to him, right? And then the father dies right when it comes back to his story. And literally one of them says, "And just now when Karl Heinz isn't here." And, like, this is where, like, this movie kind of, like, it becomes more about just, like, Edmund walking and stuff, and kind of his thinking. Like, this is the point where he's, like, thinking about what he actually did. Like, this is, like, you could say, like, what Rossellini would hope young Germany would think about, as they maybe face their past or something, like the kind of crimes they committed,
Mm-hmm.
At least in my opinion, because he's like, he starts to think about what he's actually done as, like, we see people, we see all, like, the people that live in the house discussing the body, and they're already thinking about what they can take and stuff, and how much money everything on his body is worth, like, literally right after. And Edmund just watching, and just watching, it's like, trying to think about what he actually did, like, this is what he sacrificed for,
I had to check myself whenever watching that, because I was like, that's dark.
No,
but then I was like, at the same time, they're living in a dark time. So the real dark one was whenever they were like, how are we gonna bury his body? And then they were like, are we getting a coffin? The head tenant's like, no, that's too expensive. What about burlap sack or some shit? I was like, oh my god, that guy.
But we've already known this whole movie how he feels.
No, exactly. His daughter is kind of the moral one, because she's like, that's not. I wouldn't want anyone to be buried like that.
Yeah, no.
They end up going with the coffin, but.
But then, like, right after Karl Heinz comes back, and, like, he's actually happy because, like, he's been registered, and, like, he didn't get in trouble. But then he finds out about the death, and I think it's Edmund that asks him. He says, "Is he free now?" Talking about the father, and Karl Heinz says, "Yes, he's completely free." And to me, that's another almost like a hint for Edmund of, like, the ending. This idea of death as freedom, as escape. Because, like, he to me that's kind of, at least that's what I think about. That's what I think he's thinking about at this end, because these last ending of the movie is basically just no talking. Now this is just the wandering around of Edmund. Of now he's actually committed the act. That's actually not. He's kind of realized it's not a good thing either, and he starts walking around. He goes. There's just some great, like, silhouette shots of him, like, on a bridge where he's walking.
The shot of, like, when the camera gets, like, like, fuzzy or blurry, that one shot, it was one of the shots in here. Okay. Like, that's amazing. There's a lot of weird shots.
No, he goes to that girl and guy he met earlier, and they kind of just reject him. They kind of make fun of him. Then he goes to I don't even know where he goes. He goes to the stair anywhere and he sits down. I don't know what apartment it is, but then they just like kick him out of the stairs.
Yeah.
Then he goes to the teacher again, and this is what I was saying earlier, where the teacher just like he tells him what he did about actually killing the father, thinking the teacher would be happy, and the teacher's just worried about himself.
He's like freaking out.
Yeah, he's like, oh no, like they're gonna blame me for like what
they're
I said.
Gonna find out.
They're gonna actually blame me for my own words.
Yeah.
But then Edmund just like. As he's talking, it's honestly a great shot. He just like sprints out of the room.
Shot of him running.
Yeah, then it hangs on the door as he's like on the window where the teacher is. As he's like that Edmund's running away on the first floor. But then this is honestly to me the most brutal one in a way, where he like tries to play with the other kids with the ball, and he's like asking if he can show them and stuff, and they're just like, no, we don't want you here. Just get out of here.
Yeah, literally no one wants him.
Yeah, no, exactly. Like it's all these people that reject him. There's even a part where I think he walks up to a church too. Like he just stops for the music.
Yeah, he doesn't even try to go inside.
Yeah, no. It cuts actually to the inside of the church of like an organ player, but he never goes inside. He just keeps walking. He like kicks some rocks and stuff. This is also what I was saying, where the camera does that same thing, where it's kind of like it like come up close to him while he's walking, then it goes back away from him, and it'll like leave him as he keeps walking from it. Kind of like the camera's like moving in and out. But it basically it ends like with him kind of entering this kind of another like the ruins of a building.
He kind of
he's on the second
floor,
floor,
messing around.
He can see across to his own apartment.
Yeah,
and that's where I think he's like actually thinking about what he's done and like what this apartment is.
He sees them bring out the coffin.
Yeah, and then he looks down.
He's like stepping back.
Yeah. I love how it stays shot from above only, like only from his kind of perspective, because they all seem so small. If like we see the coffin coming out and everyone like. And then actually driving away and stuff, and then it cuts to the family walking away because they're calling for Edmund, but they don't know where he is. He's just watching them from above, and then we get like the drums and stuff, and to me it's almost like it's like it's supposed to look a little fake on purpose, where this body I think he speeds up the film or something too, where the body falls. It like just falls super fast.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden we just see the body just like on the ground.
It's not like glorified.
Yeah, no, exactly. It's almost like fake.
It's just to the point brutal.
Yeah. And that's kind of how it ends, like almost the same way as Paisan, just like with the death. And we see like the sister come right up, holding the body.
Yeah.
And quote, Rossellini says about the ending, everything that goes before held no interest for me. The whole film was conceived specifically for the scene with a child wandering on his own through the ruins. I only felt sure of myself at this decisive moment.
Yeah.
And to me, that kind of makes sense. Like, it's almost this thinking of everything he's encountered. That's like what the film is supposed to be about.
Well, it's a journey through the mind. This whole movie, honestly, like what did this war do? What did this war do to the minds of the youth? Honestly, like it's ruined. Like they were ruined after this. Literally, like the cities were. So. I think that's why those little like zoom ins and zoom outs for him are so cool too, because it's kind of like almost I don't know, like pulling you into his mind almost. I don't know.
I agree.
At least for a little bit.
And I think we're going to talk about Rossellini's zoom lens that he specifically starts using later on for his history movies. But to me, that's what he's trying to use that zoom lens for. Trying to go inside the minds of people, maybe what they're thinking at a certain moment.
Yeah.
And maybe to give the. How about this ending? Do you think this ending's helpful?
Depends on whose perspective you're talking about, I feel like.
Let me read what Rossellini says. Let me give his argument. He says, quote, "There's a real light of hope. The child's gesture of committing suicide is a gesture of abandon, of weariness, by which he leaves behind him all the horror he has seen and believed in. For he has acted exactly according to a precise ethic in killing his father. He senses the vanity of this, and the light lights up in him, and he has this moment of abandon, as when one becomes aware. He abandons himself to this great sleep which is death, and from there is born the new way of life, the new way of seeing, the accent of hope and faith in the future and in people."
Yeah.
That's
one way to look at it.
And that's kind of the thing, like that's how I see it in Mouchette, the same thing. This world of like everything she goes to is like not a world worth living in,
Yeah.
and like this death is almost like something new.
Well, it's something new, and hopefully, at least, it kind of makes him sound like a martyr at the very end of the day.
It sounds like a spiritual ending in a way.
Well, a spiritual ending, and like he's trying to make the people that live after him think about why this happened, almost like why did he do this?
For like Edmund's family.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. Yeah, because they haven't thought about it at all, obviously.
No.
So maybe something like this.
No, they've only been attacking him for everything he's been doing, basically.
So on that theme of attacking him for everything he's been doing, Europa 51 next week. But honestly, that is the theme of that movie too. But yeah, what we're doing next week is Europe 51 and Journey to Italy, or Voyage in Italy, actually. That's actually the real.
Journey to Italy, Voyage. Yeah, Journey is like the translation. Like it's like confusing. Honestly, I'm confused by it.
I'll mention more about the title next week too.
Yeah,
because it's had a bunch of different titles.
Yeah, Journey to Italy doesn't really make sense because
it's Voyage. Voyage in Italy is like
they're in Italy the whole time. It's not really about.
They're not going to Italy.
No,
that's
in
true.
Italy the whole time.
That is true. Yeah, Voyage in Italy is what we're going by anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah. Until next week, hope to see you floating through the clouds.